Today's episode is brought to you by Coal Creek Equine, makers of the best equine spa in the industry. If you want your horses to be world champions, you better put them in a Coal Creek. Well, welcome, Mike. We got Mike Roberts here from the Converse Cowboy podcast. It's great to have you here, mate.
Pleasure to be here, my friend, truly.
Well, listen, I tell you what, I've been excited about this because I've been wanting to collab with you for a while. I was on your podcast, a few weeks ago, and we had probably too many cocktails of what we should have, but we had a damn good time, and I enjoyed myself with you. And I invited you onto my podcast because I really wanted to share and get your insight on some of your guests and my guests. Is that, you've been doing the podcast a lot longer than me. I've only been doing it about a year and a half, and it's more of a hobby for me. You know what I mean? And how many podcasts a month are you doing? One a week or every 2 weeks?
So I just do two a month now.
2 a month, okay.
Every other week.
Yeah, and my goal was to do one a month originally, but just with the schedule and the guest schedule and all that kind of stuff, I'm really probably knocking one out every couple of months now. So I've done a lot less than you. But between the both of us, we've interviewed a lot of truly, truly talented people in the world. To me, mainly in the horse industry, horse trainers, etc. But there's been some other people that haven't been in the horse industry. And I really wanted to get together with you and for us to talk about the top, 1 to 3 takeaways from each guest. Because each guest to me and every horseman has 1 or 2 special things that they do better than everybody else. They have 1 or 2 things that make you sit back on your ass and go, wow, that's cool. I need to steal that. I'm going to take that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I thought it would be an interesting conversation for us to go through, maybe the top 20 people that we've each interviewed about what our takeaways from it, what we can admire about them and try to even add to our own life. I'm getting a lot of young people walking up to me in public and saying, Clinton, I love the podcast. I'm learning a lot. It's making me hungry. It's making me want to make more money. I love the guests. It's inspiring people to kick ass and do well. And that makes me want to do it. I don't do this for the money. And so I'm enjoying the fact that people are getting something out of it. What kind of feedback are you getting from your podcast?
Oh, it's the same. It's the same. Because I sit down with a number of different people. I'll sit down with horse trainers. I sit down with authors of books.
Yes.
Sitting down with rodeo athletes. So it's a wide range. And my deal is mainly, yes, it does have a focus on the Western industry, but it's also about mental health as it relates to performance and everything that comes with that, and then also the mental health of just being a human, and that's relatable to everybody. And so I think hearing those stories from those individuals that we look up to, and, because all we see are the buckles and we see them in the magazines, but to hear their low light reel, we see the highlight reel, to hear the struggles that they go through, it's encouraging to others.
Very much so. Like we did a podcast last night, actually not last night, the night before with Matt Gaines. And something he said to me during the day that I said, if it's all right with you, I'd like to bring this up in the podcast. And he said, sure. And what he said to me when we were working in the arena, he said, Clinton, there's probably been 8 to 10 times in my career that I felt like giving up. Like, I can't train a damn... This guy's won $10 million in cutting. He said, I got low enough that I can't train a damn cutting horse. I need to give up. This is just shit. Everything's going to hell. And for me, looking at him from the outside, I'm like, you've won $10 million. How can you ever have a fucking low day? How can you ever self-doubt yourself? Mm-hmm. And he said, it happens. And I said, if you wouldn't mind being vulnerable enough to admit that on camera and how you got out of those funks, how you got out of those lulls, I said, people will get a lot of inspiration from that. I said, one of the things, Matt, I noticed in the podcast that people really, really enjoy is the vulnerability of the guests. Because again, it looks, when it's lights, camera, action, from the outside, it looks like roses, doesn't it? It looks like everybody's making a shit ton of money, everybody's having a great day, everybody's high-fiving. But there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that ain't real pretty. And when guests talk about that, Mike, it gets real. And I think that's what people identify with. I think that's what the average listener, especially me too, say, hey, we all put our pants on the same way. We all have good days, we all have bad days, but what the difference is how do we get out of those bad days? And Matt explained, and we'll get into that, how he gets out of those bad funks he got in. But it was just, it's not that you like enjoying hearing somebody have bad times, but it's reassuring you're not the only one.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? We're all human.
Yeah. And it almost lays a blueprint. You know, Matt, man, he's one of my favorite people. I've had him on the show a few times. And, you know, he's one of those, like, he was getting outside advice when he first started to just be a non-pro, go get a job and make money and do those things. And he's one of the names I wrote down. And one of the quotes from the interview I did with him, he says, if you can make a living doing what you truly love to do, you're more likely to be successful no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And so that's what he did. He followed his passion, and here he is now, $10 million. Like, he said yes to himself way back then, went through all of the shit that he's gone through. And that guy, when he enters a room, and that's one thing I think with a lot of the guests that I have on, they have a presence about him. Matt has this intensity. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. But I can remember kind of being intimidated when I went up to him for the first time to ask him to come on the show. But he's just truly a top-notch individual.
Oh, very much so. And he very much cares about people's success. He likes welcoming new people to the business. You know what I mean? He's a stand-up guy, but we'll get into him a little bit more detail later. But it was the vulnerability and the realness is what makes guests relatable. And it's almost like the audience like hearing about their failures even more than their successes, because people are learning from their failures. How do I avoid that? How do I get out of this slump? How do I get better, etc.? So with that being said, let's get started. So and this is no particular order to me.
Before you get into that, I just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, that is what I truly enjoy about hosting a podcast. You know, like everyday life, if I see you on the street, like I'm going to be the guy in the corner reading a book by myself. I'm very much an introvert. But when two individuals show up for a podcast, phones are away. It's uninterrupted. And you know that you're there. And I think, like the guests that I have on, some of them take a little longer to get settled in than others.
They do, yes.
But about that 15-minute mark, and I let them know beforehand, like, this is not a gotcha show. You get last cut, and, like, I can't put something in, so please speak freely. And if you want something cut out, we'll take it out. But I think they realize the genuineness in it, and what you're talking about, the vulnerability, it just comes out of them. It comes through, and it's such a cool experience, and I truly enjoy having those conversations.
You'd be amazed in my career how many people that are really extroverted people and can really talk, but you put them in front of a camera, they seize right up. It's something about a camera. So if you can get a guest to forget about a camera and forget the rest of it exists, it's just two people having a conversation, they'll do really well. But when you get them in front of a camera, it's almost like they freeze up. So I just tell them when they sit down, listen, we're just two guys bullshitting. Just forget anybody else is here. We're just two guys bullshitting with a couple of cocktails, and we're here to tell a few funny stories, a few lies, and a few true truths, and just enjoy each other's company. And you get them kind of relaxed. And all jokes aside, I like to get a cocktail or two into them because I get better stories out of them, and I enjoy the stories more, and it just gets more real. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, especially for like the horse trainers or folks that may not be used to being interviewed. But on the flip side of that, folks that have been interviewed quite a bit, you'll notice that they're very scripted. And so it's like, that's where I feel like it's the host job. It's my job to break that script. And I do a lot of studying before the interview and preparing. And so to try to like head that script off and like, let's get to the real shit. Like, let's talk, you know?
And we're a little bit different like that. Again, there's no right and wrong way of doing this. We're a little bit different because I've told you before, I don't want to know in a perfect world much about the guests because I like the questions to be as organic as possible. I have a bit of an idea of what they do and the rough bullet points, you know what I mean? And after that, it's just genuine curiosity that takes over. But, you know, even when they're vulnerable, like after the podcast, I'll take them back and we'll go to a great steakhouse and have a great steak and a few cocktails. Mike, the fucking stories that I hear out of these people after the podcast, and I'll say to them, why didn't you say this on camera? Why didn't you tell me this when we had it filmed? And I'm not beating up on them, so I want to make this clear when I said this. I would say 7 or 8 out of 10 of them look at me when I'll say that because these are great stories, real stories, and they'll say, Clinton, I don't have enough money put away to be that real. I can't say what I really want to fucking say because I just don't have everything put away. I've still got to toe the line. I've still got to be politically correct. I've still got to walk the walk.
Everybody does it, whether it's real life or a podcast. They have this mask that they put on. And that's what they want to present to the world.
And I don't beat them up for that because
Yeah.
a lot of people criticize me. Well, Clinton, you didn't talk the way you did when you were on RFD TV for 15 years. I never heard you swear once. How I talk with you is just who I am in everyday life. But when I was on TV for 15 years, I didn't own that station, so I had to toe the line. There was no swearing. Now, when the camera is off, I just talk how I talk. This is not an act. This is just who I am.
Right.
So I don't beat them up for that because, we all have to toe the line. RFD TV drove my entire business model. That's what brought in all the money. So I couldn't get kicked off that station. But I can promise you some of the stories I hear after the podcast with a couple more cocktails and steaks are just unbelievable. And all I can do is encourage the guests to be as real as possible because people think that the more real you are, people will criticize you. Some will, but most are endearing.
Well, they will criticize you, and that lets you know that's a good thing. It lets you know who aligns with you and who needs to just kind of fall to the wayside.
Remember I told you when I met you, I try to get to a fuck yes or a fuck no quick.
Yeah.
Fuck yes, this is my kind of people. These are my people. Or fuck no, they're not my people.
Right.
Does that make sense? I don't want to be down. I always have that saying, remember, when you sit in the middle of the fence, you get splinters in your ass. Pick a team. Who's on your team? It's funny, a lot of people love to criticize my lifestyle and language and what I say and what I do, but I don't criticize them. I don't give a shit. They want to go to church 4 times a week, knock yourself out. I don't care. In fact, I encourage you, if that's how you want to live your life, go for it. That's why we live in the greatest country in America, in the world as America, is that you have the freedom to be what you want.
Right.
But I'm always amused at how many people want to criticize me for my life. Going to church 4 times a week ain't my gig. But if it's your gig, go for it. I encourage you. Love it. Get into it. But you'll be sure as shit how they love to criticize the shit out of me. You know what I mean? So with that being said, let's get started. So my first person, and these aren't in any particular order of the most important or the least by any means, but the first one was Melanie Smith, okay? The notes I wrote down here is Melanie didn't come from a horse family at all. Didn't come from money, came from very blue collar, just real, middle class America. Not a lot of money, no horse background, no nothing. So in theory, no support there. It's not like she was born into the horse industry or born with a mentor in horses. She still made it work because she had the most important ingredient that I think that most young people have to grasp is hustle. She just wanted it. She just hustled from hustling bales of hay in the pasture and going and picking them up and marking them up an extra $2 and loading them in people's trucks to eventually, 15 years later, selling 2 or 3 studs for $2 or $3 million a piece. But it's that same hustle. And she never let money stop her. She never let coming from a non-horse background stop her. Mm-hmm. And sure, was it difficult? Sure, did she have to do an extraordinary amount of hours? And she did, but it worked. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people want to feel like if they weren't born into money or they weren't born into the horse industry or they weren't born with key parts to make a business work, that they can't make it work. She proved you can. I proved you can. A lot of people have, in fact. But it was very inspirational to me how she had that horse bug from a young age and just wouldn't give up on it, even when her parents told her to give up on it, even when people around her said, you're stupid, you shouldn't do this, there's no money in horses, blah, blah, blah. She's proved them all wrong.
Silver Spurs Equine. Our stallion roster consists of over 30 of the industry's top performers and producers, including such greats as Wimpy's Little Step, A Sparkling Vintage, SG Frozen Enterprise, Shiner's Voodoo Doctor, and more. At locations in Scottsdale, Arizona and Purcell, Oklahoma, we raise over 100 foals each year and sell each of them to the public at affordable prices. We want to see you win on a Silver Spurs horse. And to prove it, we've developed the $1 Million Challenge, our very own international incentive program that awards champions of all levels, open and non-pro, at the NRHA Futurity, the NRHA Derby, including 4-year-old stakes and novice horse divisions, the European Futurity, the German Breeders' Futurity, the Austrian Reining Futurity, the Italian Reining Futurity, the Guadalajara Classic Futurity and Derby. So breed to one of our stallions to create your dream cross with your mare, or hurry to silverspurssalehorses.com to view our inventory of available prospects. Ride on.
When it comes to horse trailers, the only brand that I use from now on is Elite. I've had every other brand over the last 25 years, and honestly, the one I keep coming back to is Elite because they last, they don't break, and they're heavy duty. Yes, are they a little more expensive? Absolutely. But you get what you pay for. If you want cheap, you're going to get cheap. If you want something well built, it's going to cost a little more money. The dealer that I use now, Jason Ducharme, out of Oklahoma, the last 4 trailers I bought, I've price shopped him with 5 other dealers. He has absolutely smoked them on price, has not even got close to Jason's price. I even bid his trailers out against cheaper brands that I know are going to be a cheaper trailer. He still beat their prices. So if you're looking for a new Elite trailer or you want to trade a trailer or buy a used one, get a hold of Jason, call him, text him. What's it worth the phone call? I promise you there will not be a dealer in the country that will beat his price. Mention that you watch the Uncut and Real Raw podcast for an additional savings.
Are you tired of worrying about the safety and comfort of your horses and livestock while you're on the road? Look no further than Oklahoma Trailer Ranch, the premier choice for hauling your precious cargo with unmatched reliability. Don't settle for anything less than the best when it comes to your trailers. For all your horse trailer needs, stock trailers, living quarters, contact Jason Ducharme at the Oklahoma Trailer Ranch, where we sell Elite, Logan, and Galleon products for any of your hauling needs. Mention Clinton's Uncut Real and Raw podcast and get the very best pricing. Jason will not be undersold by any dealer. Call him now at 248-459-2010. And remember, Jason Ducharme will not be undersold.
You know, everybody works hard. You know, I'm thinking about cutting horse trainers that I've sat down with. They all work hard. What is it that separates the greats? Those names that we remember, they bought into the belief of seeing what their potential is, right? They have this burning desire. Melanie clearly has it.
Yeah.
She was a guest on my podcast, and it's truly amazing to see what she's done, because what she's doing with that online sale was not supposed to work.
It wasn't. I would have bet I'm sure glad I didn't bet against it because I
Yes.
would have lost, but I would have bet if you would have told me 10 years ago, Mike, that people were going to spend thousands of dollars, $100,000, and buy a horse that they've never seen, never touched, never ridden it, or never seen it loping around pen, and they were going to give that kind of money for it, I'd say you're an idiot. There's no way. Blew me away. Just absolutely.
So yeah, it's like, do you buy into the limiting beliefs that we all have, these negative default thoughts, or do you buy into this possibility? And I think there's a very fine line between delusion and positive thinking.
Oh, very much so.
You know, and so I think...
and not every great idea, Mike, works, does it? I've had a lot of failed ideas that I thought were great, I believed in, and so it's not like everyone you believe in is going to work out. Some of them don't.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's not like positive thinking is a guarantee.
Not
it's
even
not,
close.
But I would be willing to bet it enhances your chances of success versus a negative thought.
Yeah. What was that product that Coke came out with? It wasn't Coke Zero.
New Coke, wasn't it? Like,
Coke,
you talking about years ago?
Yeah, years ago, that product that came out that flopped so bad that they took it off the shelves within a month or so. It flopped so bad. Think about how many genius marketing people they had. Think about how many focus groups they would have had on that product. Think about how much market testing they would have done for 2 or 3 years leading up to that release, and it's still bombed. You get what I'm saying? So, and how much resources Coca-Cola had behind them and marketing dollars to make that product be a success. So there is no guarantee a great idea is going to work. I think more than anything is when a great idea doesn't work, do you just give up completely, or do you keep coming back? Do you tweak that idea? Do you scrap it and say, shit, that didn't work, let's go this direction?
Right.
But does it, I think the most important thing is it doesn't stop forward motion. You might deviate left or right, but it didn't stop your forward motion.
Doesn't stop forward motion, and it's not like if something doesn't work, it's a waste. It's not, because you have all of the skills that you developed in doing that thing. Even though that idea didn't work, you know, I'll get into one of the names that I had, because
what's your next name?
He's got a good quote that goes in line with what we're talking about. Every cutting horse trainer I sat down with brings up this individual, and he's just so respected in the industry. and he's just got a good energy about him. Anytime he's around, he's having fun. He's, of course, serious whenever it's showtime. But Paul Hansma. Paul Hansma is a guy I think every one of the cutting horse trainers brought up. And anyway, his quote, it says, "To climb the ladder of success, we all climb the same way. There's no skipping steps. We all start at the bottom. We slowly climb. Every once in a while, you're going to fail. You're going to go down a few steps and always learn something. Just know that every time you fall a step or two, you'll never go all the way back to the bottom."
Pretty powerful, isn't it? Yeah. Everybody does start at the bottom. They really do. You know, what's the old saying? The only job you start at the top is post-hole digging. You know what I mean? That's the only job you start at the top.
Yeah. Yeah, some may have more resources than others. You may be born into a family that sets you up, but you still start at the very bottom.
I tell you something about that. I almost feel like being born into resources is almost a handicap, and I'll tell you why. Most young people that I've seen in my career that have been born into resources, money, horses, whatever it is, I'm not going to say all of them, but the vast majority of them never did shit with their life. They never went anywhere. Because when you have an abundance of resources, there's no hunger. If you're back in caveman days and you're hungry, you're not going to sit in the cave, are you? You get out and hustle.
Yeah.
You go find the next dinosaur. You go find something to eat. When you got a full belly, you're not leaving that fucking cave. So I found that a lot of people that came from resources, I almost thought it was a handicap for them because they lacked fire. They lacked passion. They lacked grab something by the balls and shake it.
Right.
Does that make sense? So obviously, raising kids in poverty has got its own struggles, real struggles. But I also think raising kids in an abundance has real struggles too.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I think there's some sort of middle ground there that can work pretty good. Work pretty good. I also think, Mike, that over the years, and I've had probably more young people come through my program in 25 years, kids between 18 and 25, that I've noticed some big trends, and that was one of them. The more resources they came with, the less hustle they had and the less give a fuck they had. But I also noticed this. I don't think you can put hustle in people. It's either in them or it's not. That raw passion. I used to think 20 years ago, if there was a kid that kind of lacked some passion and lacked some go-getter, it's all right. He'll just get around me. He'll see how hard I work. I'll mentor him. I'll get that fire in his belly. Here's what I've noticed. You can put fire in kids' bellies when you're around them and when you tell them when to wake up, when to go to bed, when to take a shit, and when to work. Like when you structure them, they'll have so-called fire in their belly. But when they leave that structured program and you're no longer accountable, they're no longer accountable to you, every single one of them go back to what they were when they started. If they started with hustle, they stay with hustle. If they started with laziness and I put my foot up their ass and got them lazy, when I took my foot out of their ass, they went back to being lazy. Every kid I ever had when they left me, I've noticed over 25 years, all over time, over 2 or 3 years, migrate back to what they were when you met them. So now I don't believe what I originally did 25 years ago. I don't believe you can put fire in people. It's either fucking in them or it's not. They're born with it or they're not born with it. Fire doesn't mean knowledge. You can teach somebody knowledge. You can teach people skill set, can't you? But they got to have the passion for it. Do I want this? Do I want to go through the struggles to get it? Am I going to work harder than everybody else? So my belief, you could disagree, but you're born with it.
Yeah, I don't know where I stand on that because maybe those individuals, maybe that's not their thing. Maybe they haven't found their passion. You know, that thing that you just wake up thinking about. And
Very much so. Maybe the horses weren't it for them. Yep,
Yeah.
I can admit to that.
Yeah. But you mentioned consistent themes like that. That's one of the consistent themes I've seen with all guests is like in the beginning, they just go do that thing that they love to do. And it turns out to be great because they don't have the knowledge. It's almost like a blessing to almost be ignorant to what you're supposed to do or how you're supposed to do it. They just go do the thing. Especially like I'm thinking of musicians right now, singer-songwriters. Their first album is usually great because they're just having fun.
Yeah.
And they're doing what they love to do, and it turns out great. And then the expectations come, and then like every next level of whatever it is you're pursuing is going to demand a different version of you.
Oh, yes, it
And
is.
so like it's like balancing that. Now we have expectations. Oh shit. Now I'm a little more indecisive versus before. We didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, and you just go do the thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Anybody else on your list?
Oh yeah, I've got a whole bunch.
Give me another name.
We'll stay with the cutting horse theme and the Canadians with Jesse Lennox next. It's probably one of the most listened to interviews that I've had, and I think for a number of reasons. He's funny as shit, entertaining, and he dropped a whole bunch of knowledge as it relates to performance horses, but also just as it relates to performance and how to show up with the mindset of a winner. And, you know, one of his quotes from that interview, he says, "I think we all have doubt, but overall doubt is damaging and a waste of time." And then he goes on to say, in a very typical Jesse Lennox way, doubt is for those people that have a green card. Yeah. You get one of those, and you can doubt everything. Yeah. Doubt your life away. You know, because he struggled getting over. He went back. He was working for Alice Walton at the time, training horses. He gets sent back to Canada. Didn't think he was going to get back to America, and just the struggles along the way that nobody sees now. And he's just one of the many. But everybody sees the Jesse Lennox now, and he's got all of these cool metallic cat horses and so. Just the grind that any horse trainer, hell, you know, like that's why I say all horse trainers work hard. There's something special that very few have that make you remember their name. Does that make sense?
I would say people skills, meaning that all horse trainers work very hard, but the ones that have got good people skills, the ones that can talk to customers, the ones that can be communicate well with customers, get the better horses. They can run a better business. There are a lot of horse trainers that in the arena are unbeatable, but outside that arena, they can't put two sentences together. They can't hustle a deal. They can't put a deal together. They can't sell anything. Does that make sense? Now, you can't sell something and not have performance. You've got to do both. But to me, my mother always said this to me. She said, "Clinton, you're either got people skills in life or you don't. You've either got people skills in life or you don't." And I do believe her as a general rule, but I did come across one girl in my career, her name was Shayna Terry, that when I met her was a big introvert, like very shy, not outgoing, couldn't have a conversation. You say, "How you doing?" She'd say, "Good." "How's your day been?" "It's been great." Just wouldn't carry. Like, think of the opposite of Jesse Lennox.
Yeah.
You know, Jesse's going to carry a conversation. He's a big old yeller. It's all about fun. He's going to make you feel great just talking to him, okay? Think of the opposite of that. But I saw her over 5 years develop skill sets of people skills. One of the greatest books, it's old as hell, but it truly is a great book, is the old book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Even though it was written over 100 years ago, it is still relevant today. The most important word in the English language is I. Everybody wants to talk about themselves. Everybody wants to talk about them. And she studied that book inside and out. She took the Dale Carnegie courses. She took public speaking courses. So in the end of her career, I could put her in front of 3,000 people, and she'd be charismatic, funny, outgoing, knowledgeable, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as she stepped out from the crowd, she'd crash. Like, it took that much out of her to go from introverted to being extroverted. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So when she wasn't in front of an audience, she absolutely had to regain all of her strength again because it wasn't natural for her. So can people without natural people skills develop them? The answer is yes, but you sure as shit got to want it. You sure as shit got to work really hard to develop those skills. But as a general rule, I would agree with my mother. People are either got people skills or they don't.
Yeah, I agree with the part about being able to learn it. I was going to reference the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's one of the very first books. I didn't read books until I got out of college. And then that was one of the first ones I picked up. Another one is called Influence by Robert Cialdini. And I think it can be learned. I am very much an introvert, as I said before, but I also see the benefits of being able to have extroverted tendencies.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But yeah, I think it can be learned, and I did it for sales. Like, I knew that in anything you do, you're selling something.
Absolutely.
Communication, effective communication is, like you said, for horse trainers, I think it applies to anybody. Like, effective communication, relationships, friendships. It's so important.
One of the number one rules in selling is you never sell a customer, you sell a friend. You never sell a customer, you sell a friend.
Yeah.
When they become when they feel comfortable around you, a sale just happens. Ken Bray said to me many years ago, I never forget it. He said, Clinton, he owns Equibrand. He said, Clinton, people do business off relationships more than numbers. Sure, you got to be competitive with your numbers. You got to beat the competition. But even if you're a little more expensive than the competition, or there's some negatives to your numbers, if they like doing business with you, if the relationship is good, they'll do business with you. Why do you think, how many billions of dollars get done every day on the golf course? How many billions of dollars of business gets done on fishing trips? Does that make sense? There's a reason why business people take their partners on hunting trips, fishing trips, golf tournaments, etc. Because as they're playing, they're bullshitting. They're forming better partnerships, better bonding, stuff like that. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like I said, people do business off relationships more than what they do numbers. If you have the best deal in town, but they don't like you as an individual, they won't do business with you.
Yeah.
Okay, my one now. Rodney Carrington. This was a big one for me. I got a real shock out of Rodney because we've all seen Rodney Carrington, the comedian. He's funny, he's charismatic, he's outgoing. He's R-rated as a general rule. You know what I mean? The shit that he says, I love him. A lot of other people love him too. So I didn't know what to expect when I interviewed him because I didn't know if Rodney Carrington on stage is the Rodney Carrington here or what it is. And I soon figured out, no, it's an act. That's his comedy show. And that's not offensive to me because when I got him here, he was very much the complete opposite individual, meaning that very quiet spoken, very wise, very mature, polo shirt, shorts and sneakers, not the cowboy hat, not the Wrangler jeans. It's very much a different person. But I got to thinking to myself, actors aren't who they are in a movie. They're playing a part. They do that part, and then they go back to their real world. So it wasn't offensive to me, but I didn't quite know what to expect. And I think a lot of the people, when I said I was interviewing him, they said to me, man, he must have been funny as shit to interview. And I said, no, he was actually like a wise Buddha. This motherfucker was dropping wisdoms everywhere.
Yeah.
He wasn't funny at all, but what he said, I listened to. What he said, I really respected. And one of the big takeaways I got from him, there were several, but the one that really stuck with me, that I've used several times in my life, that I'm glad I did, is I kind of repeated it on your podcast, but I'll say it again now, is when he got started doing comedy, he would do a 10-minute stand-up piece, okay? And he said, Clinton, you can't understand how bad I was in the beginning. 9.5 minutes, it's booze and crickets. It's silent crowd and booze. And he said, I might have had 30 seconds out of 10 minutes that was some laughter. And 9.5 minutes was overwhelmingly shit. He said, I'd walk off stage. And he said, the first paid gig I got, the promoter, is this your dog? Hey, buddy, she can join us. What's your dog's name?
Rook. Come here, buddy. Come back here. We'll lie down. Is he off camera right there?
It's all right. It doesn't matter if he's on camera. He's our buddy. Her head.
Rook, lie down.
It is cute. He's good.
Stay there.
Dad, I just want to be close to you. That's funny. I
saw
wonder
him-
what you were looking at
Yeah, I
back
saw him
there.
getting up, and I was like, trying to give him like the eye look, like get down.
Don't you listen to Daddy. You come over here. So he said, when I got off stage, he said, the promoter said to me, Rodney, you're so bad, find another career. He said, gave me $400, and he said, this is not for you. This industry is not for you. You're not funny. Go get a day job. And for anybody else, that would have been crippling. It's pretty intimidating. Like, I'll get in front of a crowd of 3,000 people and not feel intimidated at all to bullshit to them for 2 days straight. But if you ask me to do a stand-up comedian gig in front of a room full of 20 people and I'm on stage, I'd be horrified of that. That's very intimidating to be made to be funny. That's your job, is to be funny.
Yeah.
I'm funny in my horsemanship because I've just been doing it so long. I've put in the jokes, but I'm not trying to make them laugh. That's a whole art within itself. And I said to him, I said, how did you feel about sucking that bad and having that guy tell you, you find a different industry, you're not going to do this, blah, blah, blah? He said, it didn't even faze me. And I said, what do you mean? He said, my attitude was this. Even though 9.5 minutes sucked, there was 30 seconds it was cool. Mm-hmm. There was 30 seconds that everybody was laughing. So he said, what I did is I said, next time I'm going to try to get 45 seconds of laughter.
Yep.
And then 9 minutes and 15 seconds sucked. And the next gig, try to get a minute of laughter. And then he just built it in 15 to 30 second slots until eventually, after about a year, he said, I had 10 minutes of laughter. And I said, Rodney, that's not normal. As human beings, it's natural for us to beat ourselves up when we suck. And especially when it's so overwhelming, 9.5 minutes sucked and 30 seconds was good, how you could have any self-worth after that is mind-blowing. And I said, who taught you to be that positive amongst that much, negativity? He said, I don't know. He said, I just got such a high off the 30 seconds of laughter. I just wanted more of it. I wanted more of it. I wanted more of it. And I've done that myself. I told you when I'm training my first cutting horse now, and when I went to my first cutting, 2 minutes of it sucked. And I was you got a terrible low score. But I came out, and even though I was pissed off and upset that it was so bad, Rodney popped into my head, and he said, but 30 seconds was cool. Mm-hmm. There was 30 seconds where she did, 4 or 5 pretty damn cool moves there. And when I changed my mindset from focusing not on the 2 minutes that sucked, but the 30 seconds that worked, I walked out that back to the barn high. I was like, fuck yeah, I want to do this again. But when I first walked out of the pen and I heard that score and watched my video, I was like depressed. I was like, shit, I can't do this. This is terrible. I need to just give up now. But for some reason, Rodney Carrington popped in my head and he just said, focus on the part that worked. Focus on the part that did go well, and let's build on that. Let's not double it. So next time I went and showed that mare, I tried to get 45 seconds that was good, and the rest sucked. Yeah. And then next time a minute, until eventually I could go in there for 2.5 minutes and, get a decent score, 71, 72 compared to, 62.
Right.
Does that make sense? So that was a big game changer for me with Rodney is it doesn't matter how small the good shit is, keep your eye on that bullseye and build on that. Not keep your eye on the big part that didn't go right.
Did he say why he got into comedy?
He said that initially he got in it because he wanted family. He came from a very bad family background, mother and father, and it was just not a good home life. And he admitted to me, he said he signed up for a theater class, of all things. He was working construction, and he saw some theater class that was advertised, and he signed up for it. And he said, honestly, Clinton, it was like a bunch of us misfits all got together. Yeah. A lot of the people in the class came from bad families. They're all looking for an outlet. They're all looking for community. And he said it was the first real family I really fucking had, is that these bunch of kids in this theater class. And he said, what we had to do in this theater class made me real uncomfortable. He said, this is another thing I really admire about him. He said, if I found something uncomfortable, I made myself do it. I pushed myself to go do it. If I was going to embarrass myself, I said, right, let's go get it done. And he said, when you keep pushing yourself to do the things that make you uncomfortable, pretty soon they're not that uncomfortable.
Right.
Pretty soon the scary demon's not the scary demon anymore. So he initially said he found a family out of theater, and then theater kind of led into comedy. Does that make sense there? That's kind of how he got into it, and he just loved it. He loved the approval of the audience. He said, I loved the high I got from them laughing, and I just kept building that. But that's not normal for human beings. Like, it'd be easy to say if half what you did sucked and half was good. It'd be easy to say, well, I just focused on the good part. But when you got like 98% that sucked and 2% that didn't suck, that's overwhelming one direction, isn't it? So to have that natural instinct to say, I'm going to focus on the part that was tiny, but it worked, and build on that to me was not natural for humans to do. You agree or disagree?
No, I agree. And
you can be taught that.
And I go back and forth. Like, do you focus on your strengths or do you focus on your weaknesses? Mm-hmm. You know, and so I think that there's a balance, and maybe different for everybody.
Very much so.
You know.
Another thing I wrote down here for Rodney is, a lot of people don't know this, but he told me for a couple of years he lived in his truck. that he was homeless and he lived in his truck for about 2 years. He was that broke. His theory was, I had to get enough money from this paying gig, because he's doing little comedy clubs all over the country. He had to get enough gas money from this gig to get him to the next gig, and then get him from that gig to the next gig. So he's driving a truck by himself, and he said, Clinton, I just slept in the back of it. Found an old mattress. He said, I think he said it was behind a dumpster, actually. Found an old mattress, put it in the back of it. He had a pickup truck with one of those kind of covers on it. I don't know what
Like
they
a
call them, but
camper?
like a little camper thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a real camper, but just a cover.
Yeah.
And I said, what'd you eat? He said, whatever I could. He said, if they could give me a free meal at the comedy club, I took a free meal. He said, I ate so much fucking Spam and tin goods, it's not even funny, but that's how he survived.
Yeah.
Think about what Rodney's worth now, the millions of dollars he's worth, and he's all over the world, and the crowds that he gets in Vegas. He was kind of borderline homeless for 2 years, just living in his truck, going from gig to gig to gig.
Yeah.
Never getting depressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just keep focusing on the positive. That was eye-opening for me, okay?
Yeah.
And the last one I wrote down is he just ignored, we kind of covered this, he just ignored all the haters and the people that said he couldn't do it. He kept moving forward and focusing on the positive. I think especially in social media now, that in the last 15 years, the world communicates through social media, the amount of hate and negativity on the human race is sad. That everybody hates on everybody on social media. There's a lot more negativity before. Before social media, there was a polite etiquette involved in humans, okay? So I might not like you, but I may not say that to you in public or say that to your face because it's impolite. There's a little bit of an uncomfortable vibe there. You know, we can fake our way through, hey, nice to meet you, Mike, good to see you. But typing things on a computer took away the norms, took away the politeness. So people now say whatever the hell's on their mind, and a lot of it's negative shit. Does that make sense? So he just ignored all of that, and he just went to ignoring the hate and only focusing on the positive. And I brought that up to Matt Gaines yesterday or the day before, and I said, because he was telling me, in you know, not exactly these words, but you better damn well believe in yourself, because if you think anybody else is going to believe in you in the beginning, you're an idiot. I'll even go one step further. I almost think you have to be half arrogant in the beginning to make it. You got to be, you know, they called Trump what do they call him? Teflon Don. He's like Teflon. He's like, you can't shoot the man. He won't give up. Doesn't matter what you throw at him, he keeps coming back. You got to have kind of that half arrogance to you. If you're going to be in the public eye, especially today on social media, the amount of hate that you get, you got to just laugh at it. You got to be indestructible. You got to believe in yourself so much that somebody says, he's cocky, he's arrogant. You're right, motherfucker, I am. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to make it, you better be. Because if you've got any self-doubt, they're just looking for a chink in your armor. Mm-hmm. The haters are just looking for a little space in your armor to dig into your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. There's a quote that I have from Coulter Wall. Do you know who Coulter Wall is? Sleeping on the Blacktop. Again,
is he an actor? What is he?
He's a musician.
Okay.
I guarantee you've heard his music.
Okay, I probably have.
You've heard his music. But he says, and I'm bringing him up because it was a really cool interview. He's a well-known name in the music industry, and having him on the podcast opened the door for other musicians.
Yeah.
It gave me like a rite of passage,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, or like gave me credibility, I should say, with other musicians. But he says, no matter what you do, if you begin to have any kind of success, there's going to be expectations from certain people. You just can't pay too much attention to it. Mm-hmm. And so from a songwriter's perspective, it's like, well, your album wasn't like, this album wasn't like the last album.
Yes.
You're not, like he went and got voice lessons. He has this real gravelly voice, and so he went and got voice lessons. And so he's got people trying to criticize that, you know. And so I was really curious to hear from him about that, because his level of fame went like this.
Quickly.
Very fast, yeah, because he has such a unique voice and is such a talent with a pen and his writing abilities. And it was funny, like, I didn't know this at the time, but he turned down Rogan.
True.
And then he came on the Converse Cowboy podcast.
Why did he turn down Rogan? I'm curious.
I think he was ranching.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably the most cowboy answer. And that's me. That's
Yeah.
just hearsay. I don't. I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't know at the time because I would have asked about it and probably pissed him off.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad I didn't know. But
Yeah.
he is a very genuine guy, and seems
you
like
kno-
all the nice guys are from Canada. I just brought up 3 Canadians, so.
Have you noticed, doesn't matter what industry somebody's in, a lot of the struggles still the same?
I
Or
think
different-
well,
different set
I
of
don't know that
struggles?
every struggle is the same, but that is the like the common denominator struggle.
Yeah.
They're going to struggle. Rodney Carrington living in his truck, you
Yeah.
know, a lot of these musicians busking on the street for pennies,
Yeah.
just doing what they love to do. And I did a deal a while back. I got to a place where I felt too comfortable in my life, and so I made up this challenge. I was meditating one day, and this thing came to me, and so I went to Terlingua, which is about 10 minutes from the border of Mexico. I left all my credit cards at home. I brought $50 and a backpack, my guitar, and a suitcase with a few clothes and some beef jerky that Carrie Kelly gave me. And I just showed up, and I wanted to see what happened. I wanted to like put myself back in that position of just like I wanted to find like
Rawness.
that grind mentality
Yeah.
again, you know? And so when I did, Clinton, my ego got bitch slapped like a motherfucker, man. Like the Uber driver dropped me off, and I don't know why I picked Terlingua. Just like on a map, I just
Yep.
picked it, and it was a perfect place. It was set
So
up.
you lived on the street? What'd you do?
Yeah, first night I slept. So there's a little restaurant there called the Starlight Theater, and so I went in. I was trying to just save my money, so I bought a beer and some chips and salsa, and I'm just like quizzing the bartenders, like, where can I sleep tonight? I'm new. I've just got here. I don't have any money to get a hotel. Where can I sleep and be safe? And they're like, well, down in that fire pit. You know, assuming there's no party there,
Yeah.
you'll be fine. And so sure enough, it was fucking cold, man. It was like 40 degrees. And I've never heard coyotes howling in a way that I did that night because they
Yeah.
seemed a whole lot closer.
Now, I
But-
gotta ask you, halfway through this night, are you thinking, man, did I do the right
yes,
thing?
fuck yeah! I'm like, what are you doing? I wanted to go home. I'm fucking shaking. I'm pulling clothes out of my deal. I have no blanket,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm just fucking like, this is why you came here. Like,
Yeah.
you've got to face this shit, you know. And I mean, I got dirt all over me from this fire pit. I get woke up to people walking. You know, it's somewhat of a touristy little town. But it's called Ghost Town. Like there's some old ruins. So I'll make this story quick, but I started doing what we do as a society. I started looking for a job to make money. So I started looking for anything I could do. I didn't care if I wanted to do it. River rafting, I was like, oh, I got it, man. These got these horse rides right up my alley.
I thought you were going to say horse.
No.
You said, "Oh," I swear to God, I thought that was, I'm going to look for some horse.
I need to be
Maybe
careful.
that's where my mind was going. But anyway, keep
To
going.
be careful where I hesitate my words. But I always thought for sure I'll get these horse gigs. No, man, nobody would hire me.
Yeah.
It was very defeating, but I brought my guitar for a reason. I knew that people play music on this porch, and there were professional musicians that come through. Like, it is a destination for that live music in the Starlight Theater, and so I'd see these professionals like. They're playing at the Starlight later, but they'd be on the front porch, and there's a 2-hour wait. So there's a line of people. This thing is set up to play music. And so fast forward 2-3 days go by. I'm walking like to these different places to try to get a job. Nobody's hiring me. And I see this guy. He slept there. He was a traveling musician in his van, this piece of shit, 93 Chevy. He's living out of his van, him and his dog. And I started to walk down the road again to get a job. And I said, you know what? I'm going to turn around and just go talk to this guy. And which, again, is out of my comfort zone. And in that moment, after that moment, I learned the lesson of what 20 seconds of courage can get you.
Yes.
Just 20 seconds of intense courage can change the trajectory of your life. And it did mine for the rest of that trip because,
What did you say to him?
well, I walked up to him and said, hey, I'm Mike. And he told me his name. And I said, I saw you playing up on the porch yesterday. You got some really cool stuff. Like, do you mind if I come play with you? And he's like, yeah, sure. Come on. I'll be up there around noon, you know. And so sure enough, I grabbed my guitar, and I'm an amateur at best, right? I've got a handful of songs, and a friend of mine, he's goes by the name of the Last Night Fighter. He's a damn good singer-songwriter. He gave me some like busking tips before I went.
Yeah.
He's like, you need 20 songs.
Yeah.
Once you play those, whoever's there is going to leave, and you're going to rinse and repeat those songs, you know? So I practiced up before I went. Anyway, Leo DeSanto is the musician's name that was there, from Pennsylvania, traveled through, and I know my story's getting long here,
Keep going.
but that the reason I did it was to find that grind mentality and just to show up and see what the fuck happens. And
Pretty humbling.
it was very humbling, and I'll tell you, Clint and I played with Leo. He was kind enough to split the money that we made.
Yeah.
And so we have the guitar cases open, people are putting money in, and I walked away with $20, dude, after the 3 days and sleeping under the stars. And like, I've made 6 figures on selling houses.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
$20 felt as good or better
That's
than
awesome.
that, you know, than those big sales. And so I was journaling every day, man. It was just like therapy, just to learn. I was vlogging. So it's documented for anybody that wants to check it out. It's on YouTube and on Instagram. But just, man, it was so fun just playing music, interacting with the people that were there. Other musicians would come on the porch. And what I learned through that is just show up, do what you truly want to do. Good shit will happen.
Yeah.
And
you had to get uncomfortable, though.
you had to
You
get
were very
uncomfortable. But like
uncomfortable.
you said, what was very uncomfortable in the beginning became one of the cheapest vacations I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was fucking awesome, man. I spent 2 weeks there and had enough money saved up. I mean, I had a few $100s by the end of it, and
Rich
had
asshole.
enough to buy me a train ticket back, which was a cool experience in itself. My first shower in 2 weeks was on that train.
That's awesome.
I was pretty ranked.
So I bet you were just. I bet a bar of soap seemed like a bar of gold.
You have no idea, dude. I stayed in there for at least 2 hours. But after playing with Leo for 2 days, I had enough money to buy a tent. We went down to the general store, bought a tent, bought a sleeping bag. Dude, I was
That's
set.
awesome. That's awesome.
You don't need that much.
No.
That's another lesson. You don't need that much to be happy.
When you couldn't get a job, was it depressing? When you tried to get a job, when you went down there, did it mess with your head that nobody would hire you?
Yeah, it was very discouraging. In playing there for, I don't know, consecutive days, there's locals there, and they would see me playing. They're like, dude, we'd love to see you playing up here. It's awesome. And one of the bar owners from down the road, he said, hey, what are you doing later, you know? And he's like, one of the bands just canceled. We'll give you a free meal. We'll give you all the beer you want, and you get the tips. And so in that conversation, him and I start talking. He's telling me about an issue he's having with his girlfriend, this and that. Long story short, he was just very hippie guy, long hair, and just cool vibe. And he said, yeah, it's all going to be fine, though, because I know whatever happens in this moment is the absolute best thing that can happen for me.
Everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens for your benefit, and if you can buy into that belief, it's not naive optimism. There is meaning. You have to find the meaning in it. But there is just
Remember
so
what I
many
said
lessons.
on the podcast of yours? Every bad shit that's ever happened to me has been a blessing in disguise. Every really shitty thing that's happened to me in my career, going through it was horrible. But coming out the other side is like, that was a lot that came out of that. There was a lot of positivity that came out. And after you've done it enough times, like the last one that happened to me probably 5-6 months ago now, I wasn't worried going through it. Even though it was shitty to go through it, I knew something great was going to come out of it. I didn't know exactly what. I didn't know exactly when it would come out, but I had enough faith in myself that I've done this enough times in my life that I knew something positive. So I didn't stress about it. I didn't try to hurry that process.
Yeah.
I just went through the uncomfortableness until I came out the other side, and now everything in my life has got tremendously better from that incident happening. But it took me 25 years to get enough confidence to know that you got to go through some ugly shit. Gordon McKinley used to say this with training horses. Sometimes you got to go through some bad shit to get to the good shit. Sometimes with a colt, you got to go through some ugliness there, but it's not real pretty, not real fun. But when you break through that and you get to the other side, there's some really cool things that happen.
Their hearts thunder for us. Their flesh and bone pushed to lift us higher, carry us faster, and stop on a dime. And when they've had a great ride, they deserve a great recovery. They deserve a cold creek. Cold Creek Spas offers state-of-the-art 35-degree aerated saltwater therapy, proven to reduce injury, speed recovery, and keep them at peak performance. Cold Creek Therapeutic Spas. This water is for winners.
Want to get your brand noticed? Advertising opportunities now available, including title sponsorship and episode sponsorships. The Uncut and Real Raw podcast is among the top 1% of podcasts in the nation, with nearly 1 million downloads. Join our winning team and come along for the ride. Email social@uncutandrealraw.com for more information.
See Clinton Anderson and his Down Under horsemanship method live. Order tickets now for the Walkabout Tour in Memphis, Tennessee on March 15th and 16th, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania on July 12th and 13th, Waterloo, Iowa on September 6th and 7th, and Buckeye, Arizona on December 13th and 14th. For ticket information, visit downunderhorsemanship.com.
So, Mike, we're back after our break again, and that's why I asked you, when you couldn't get a job, did it mess with your head? Like self-worth, like, what can I do? Nobody wants to hire me, because the reason I asked you that is that when I first came to the States, it would have been 1995. I came here for about a year, met a girl, we got married, went back to Australia. We were just a couple of dumb kids. She was 18, I was 21. We didn't know the difference in love and lust, okay? Not her fault, not mine. We're just a couple of dumb kids. Got married way too quick, blah, blah, blah. When we got married, I went back to Australia for a year. I wanted her to meet the family and see where I came from, that kind of stuff. But the goal was always to return to America. So when I went back to Australia for a year, I'm like, I didn't want to start training horses again because I'd already left that career behind, like meaning that I gave up all my old customers and went to America. And I thought, well, I don't want to have to start up a horse training business again just for 1 year, knowing that I was just going to be here for a year. So I thought to myself, no worries, I'll just go get a city job for a year. Just some sort of city job, just something to pay a few bills while I'm there for a year. So I thought to myself, this is the first time that reality hit me, like having no education, it was a problem. Like I left high school at 15, okay? So I didn't graduate high school, didn't have any major skill set, etc. So I thought, well, what can I do? And I thought, well, this is easy. I'll just go pump gas. Just go to a gas station, petrol station, and work there. I can pump gas, air up tires, wash windshields, bullshit like that. Low-skilled job, basically, okay? So I go to the first gas station and say, hey, my name's Clinton Anderson. I'm looking for a job. I saw some advertisements in the paper. This is all before social media. Internet wasn't around. And, well, what have you done for the last, 5 years? I probably would have been 21 by this point, Well, what have you done, since you left high school? Well, I've been a horse trainer. And these people looked at me like I had 3 heads. And they said, well, what other skills do you have? Well, nothing, but I'm a hard worker. I'll bust my ass. Whatever you want to do, I'll do it. These people wouldn't hire me. just wouldn't hire me. And I went from gas station to gas station. After about 3 days, it's fucking with my head. Like nobody will give me a job. So on the 4th day, every day I'm getting knocked back 7 or 8 times. So on the 4th day, I walk up to this gas station owner and I said, listen, I'll work for free for a week. You just give me a chance. I'll give you a week's worth of free labor. I'll do whatever you want to do. Just give me a chance. I know I don't have a lot of experience, but I'll learn quick. I'll give you a week for free, 2 weeks, whatever you want. Because I know after a week or two, you'll hire me because I'll work that hard. He looked at me like I had 3 heads, that you would actually work for free to get a job. That's how bad you wanted a job. You'd work for free just to get in the door. Mm-hmm. And he still didn't hire me. I'm like, what the fuck have I got to do to get a job? Funny story, kind of embarrassing, but funny. I walked into a Sizzler restaurant in Rockhampton, Queensland, Australia. I found the manager, and I walked right up to him, and I shook his hand. I said, my name's Clinton Anderson. I said, I want a job. I'll clean the toilets with a toothbrush. I'll scrub the floors on my hands and feet. I'll take out the trash. I don't care what job you have, how disgusting it is, how bad nobody else wants to do it. I'll do it. Not only will I do it, I'll work for a week free. You owe me nothing.
How old were you?
I would have been, at that stage, I would have been 21.
21.
That manager looked at me and he said, you don't need to do that. And I'm expecting a rejection. He said, you don't need to do that. He said, you're hired right now. When can you start? I said, I'm here, aren't I? He said, go in there. And he had me bussing tables. So for 6 months, I bussed tables at a Sizzler restaurant. Funny now where I am now compared to then.
Yeah.
And I was happy to get that job. Happy to do it. And I mean, I busted my ass doing that job and was quite happy to do it, really. And over the course of 6 months of being in this restaurant, a lot of my old customers would see me in there. Hey, Clinton, what are you doing? Oh, I just come back for a few months. And they said, well, can you start a colt for me? Oh, I suppose I could start one for you. So then I started training one horse after work and then two after work. And within 6 months, I got so busy training horses again, I had to quit the Sizzler job. But I'll never forget, that was the first time in my life that I ever had any self-doubt. When I couldn't get a job, it fucked with my head. Like, it's like, what am I worth? And the other thing that really hit me is I didn't realize how risky it was leaving school at 15 because I had no real skill set. Still to this day, other than training horses and training people and business, I don't have a skill set. I can type my name into a computer and that's about it. Does that make sense? I can return an email, but I don't have life skills as far as mechanic or build a house, or you get what I'm trying to say?
Well,
so it was risky.
Yeah.
It was risky me leaving school at that younger age, because if I would have got hurt or would have got fucked up, I didn't have anything else to fall back on. You know, it was it. But also, that was also one of the things that made me try harder, because in the back of my mind, I knew failure wasn't an option. I knew that if this doesn't work, what else was I going to do? You know, I told you on your show, coming from no money is a blessing because there is no plan B. You don't get to go home to rich parents.
Right.
You don't get to home and have security. There's nothing there.
Right. Yeah, I think you show up with a focused intent. This is going to sound woo-woo, but that's just the way the universe works, man. The synchronicities and the serendipity, those people walking in that used to train horses for, and then giving you those horses, me showing up in Terlingua, and then this thing just evolves. Good shit will happen.
Yeah.
Just show up, focused intent, in a state of gratitude. That's another very important element, to be able to have the perspective to recognize those opportunities in disguise in the moment.
Yeah.
Elevates and expedites your path.
Yeah. Awesome. Who else on your list?
This is a guy. Jesus Christ! It's another Canadian.
Yeah.
It's another Canadian.
These assholes paid you, didn't
I
they?
swear, I've got a list of people, but yeah, Corb Lund. He's another singer-songwriter, and I believe he's from Alberta. The longer it takes you to get the spotlight on you, and the longer you spend down in the dumps, the better your shit's gonna be when it finally gets presented to the world.
Yeah.
And so that was what I was about to say. Another common theme, another thread that all of these individuals have in common is their ability to delay gratification.
Yes.
We live in this microwave society now where we want the results now, and it just doesn't happen that way. Not for sustainable success.
Now, something just popped in my mind. It's fucked up, but I got to say it. You know what I'm like. The old Huck 2 girl. Now, come on now. You didn't say that happened quick. She went from nobody knowing who Huck 2, you know who I'm talking about on TikTok, okay?
Yeah.
Nobody knowing who this girl is to overnight, she's a success. Now whether she'll when I say success, popular.
Yeah.
Now, whether she'll brand that, whether she'll turn that into money, whether she'll turn that into a career, I'm not betting on that. I'm not betting against her. I'm not betting for her. But that's the opposite of down in the dumps, isn't it? That's the opposite of in the struggle to get success. She got success overnight. What was the other singer guy, the ginger guy with the beard and all that sung that song?
Oliver Anthony.
Yes, that was another one. Pretty much unheard of, and sung a song on TikTok or social media and just fucking blew his career up.
I think the difference in the two is this Oliver Anthony guy had been pursuing this thing for a long time, and yes. He put himself out there. Zach Bryan's another one.
Yep.
TikTok is what blew him up.
Yeah.
But they were pursuing that thing for a long time.
The vast majority of people don't get over success overnight. It took many years of, people always see you be successful when they think that it started like that. It doesn't start like that at all.
Yeah. Luck happens when opportunity meets preparation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Ian Francis says luck is when hard work and opportunity meet each other.
Mm-hmm.
When hard work and opportunity start fucking, that's what luck's called after that. Yeah. Give me another name.
Oh, let's see. There were so many good ones, and that's one thing I want to point out. Like, I'm so grateful to be able to sit down with each and every one of these individuals for all of these interviews.
I got one. Let me throw one in there. Fred Whitfield. Notes I wrote down here. Fred came from a pretty modest, poor background, and he said, being poor doesn't mean you can't make it. Fred worked with what he had. He said the first horse he had was a pony. And he said, we didn't have any money for saddles. We had basically a bridle, and that was it. He said, we rode those ponies everywhere, all day, everywhere. We taught them to rope. We taught them to back up on the rope. We basically turned them into calf horses as kids because that's all we had. He said, we rode them so much there was very little hair left on their back where we sat. And he laughed about it. But, how many 8 times world champion, best in the world at what he did? People just forget that people think that you have to have resources to get started. No, what you have to have is passion. You got to have that more than anything. Even if, sure, resources can help. But as I've explained, most kids that come from resources lack the passion. It's that simple. So Fred was another one. Another one I took from Fred was he very much ignored the haters. I didn't realize this in his career, but he got a lot of shit thrown at him being a black man in traditionally a white man's sport, cowboying and rodeoing, and for not only for him to be one of the few black guys doing it, but he was kicking the white guys' ass. He got a lot of hate his way for a while. And he said, I just made me hungrier, just made me more passionate to kick ass, more passionate to do well. And he turned a negative into a positive. And I can relate to that. When people say I can't do it, it makes me want to do it more. When people shit on me, I want to prove them wrong.
Right.
Use that as your fuel
Exactly.
to do well. Don't take it as a stab in the heart. Take it as I'm going to prove you wrong. I don't want haters to quit hating them. I love it. I use it as fuel to make them prove them wrong.
Exactly. And I think the important thing, too, is to understand that you can choose your perspective. You can choose to use it as fuel, or you can choose to use it as an anchor that drags you down and stops you. Here's one from a songwriter, Vincent Neil Emerson. He's on the same record label as Coulter Wall, La Honda Records. And he says, songwriting is a very personal thing. You can't pay too much attention to what other people think. If they like it, that's cool. If they like it, then you're in business. If they don't, just keep going and you'll find your audience somewhere.
Yeah.
So again, it's the same thing. It's like this pursuit of just doing the thing you love to do.
You notice that was a fancy way of saying being genuine and authentic. When you're genuine and authentic to you, people are attracted to that. Not everybody, but that's why we live in a great country, because not everybody's got to like you, Mike.
Yeah.
Not everybody's got to like me. You know what I mean? Be who you are. I've noticed the more you are who you are, the more people you attract your way. You'll get plenty of haters too, but you'll sure get a lot more people. It's almost like people can sense when you're genuine or you're a counterfeit motherfucker.
Yeah.
They can sense it.
Yeah, authenticity is so rare these days that it is.
That's why it's so
a valuable
important.
thing. Yes.
That's why it's important, because when it stands out, it's like, wow, you are who you are. You're not frightened to say, I hate your guts. I'm like, good for you.
Yeah.
Like when people hate on me, I'm like, good for you. It really doesn't bother me at all. Because remember I told you on your podcast, the only people's opinion that I really give a shit about are the people that I think will be around my deathbed. If I got cancer tomorrow and I got 3 months to live and I'm on my last 24 hours, who are the people that I really think will be by my bedside? They're the people I give a shit about their opinions of me.
Right.
Beyond that, couldn't give a rat's ass, because all those other people won't be by my bedside the last 24 hours I'm alive. So why should you give them any thought now?
Well, that's a very important, and something I think about a lot is we put so much attention and energy and we allow, I'm just as guilty as the next person, we allow the opinions of others to dictate our beliefs or what we pursue. And when you look around, everybody here will be dead in 100 years.
Very much so.
And so it's not going to make a shit what they think.
No.
So why the fuck don't we live the life that you want to live?
Because as humans, we're tribal animals.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to fit into a tribe. because that's how tribes survived, is that the outcast got killed quickly. But we were supposed to be in a tribal society. So
My thing is, we don't live in that time now.
No, we don't need now.
It's like we have this antiquated hardware that has to be rewired. We have
an abundance now, don't we? We have an abundance attitude now. Back caveman days, we had to stick together as a tribe to hunt together. 100 men had to pull down a woolly mammoth. We had to stick together to get that sumbitch on the ground. Does that make sense? Now we can each have a gun and we can just shoot that sumbitch ourselves. So we don't live in a world that we have to be in a tribe, but we're hardwired to be in a tribe. I think that's some of it. You know what I mean? But again, I also think that the social media is like everything else. I always say in life, your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. What makes you so popular is also what makes you so hated. What makes you so likable is what makes you so hated. So social media is a wonderful thing in the fact that you can reach hundreds of thousands of people quickly. You can influence hundreds of thousands of people positively quickly. It's instant to the world. I can influence people all over the world very quickly in other countries within 6 seconds of posting something. But then the negative of that is there's always an equal yin and the yang. The negative of that is it also opens up for criticism, discontent, people hating on you, people spreading lies about you, people posting shit that's not true about you. Does that make sense? You can't have a positive without a negative. It's just that simple. Whatever your greatest strength is as human is also your Achilles heel. So the Achilles heel of the internet and social media is the hate. That's the Achilles heel. A lot of good things get spread through social media, don't they? But a lot of shit gets spread through it too, doesn't it? And I think people focus on the negative of social media more than what they do the positive.
I do agree with that. I was just trying to process my thoughts about social media. It's like a loaded gun, you know, it just depends on how you use it. It depends on your intention. And, but it's also a distraction, you know. I think a lot of people just do this all day long and they have no clue how much time they're actually wasting, how much brain power and energy that it's just pissing it away.
Very much so.
I don't know if we talked about this on the last podcast or not. You know, you hear a lot of people may say, well, I don't give a shit what somebody says. Well, if somebody says that, they truly do. But I used to be one of them. But when I got to the place of being able to say, I'm okay with whatever you say, or I'm okay with whatever you think, that's a good feeling. And then there's also this thing called the spotlight effect. You familiar?
No, tell me.
The spotlight effect is where we think people pay more attention to us than they actually do. People have their own shit going on. Yes. They're not paying attention to us, you know? And so that's the ego's way of like preventing us from being uncomfortable and pursuing our dreams. And
that's a fair point.
They're not paying attention to us. And and if they are, then they let you know right then and there that they're not part of your tribe, you know?
One of the greatest lessons my mentor Ian Francis gave me that I had to really embrace as an adult, and once I did it, I felt like it was free. And I told you on your podcast, once you truly get to the point where you're comfortable if people hate you and you don't try to change their opinion, it's refreshing. It's like a release that you do. You can accept somebody saying, I hate your guts and I think you're a shitty horseman, and you just look at them and say, well, thank you for that. I hope you have a wonderful day, and mean it, and just walk off. And he always said this to me, I never forgot it. He said, Clinton, don't argue with a fool, because if you do, they're going to drag you down to their level and beat you with experience.
100%. Every time.
If you argue with a fucking fool, they will beat you because they're better at being a fool than you. So they'll beat you every time. So learning to, and this was hard for me because I like to win every argument, learning to just not have an argument with somebody because they're a fool and just being able to smile and say, I hope you have a wonderful day, which is code for, I really hope you fucking die today. I say, I hope you have a wonderful day today. God bless you, motherfucker. Good luck. I don't give a shit. Learning not to argue with people that are fools is an important skill set to have.
Yeah.
Don't argue with the fools because they're going to beat you with experience.
I agree.
You agree or disagree?
No, I agree. I think it's a waste of energy.
Righto, I'll give you another name. 2 people that came on the podcast I had a lot of respect for, did a really good job, showed a lot of vulnerability too. Charlie and Jason from High Point Quarter Horses, High Point Performance Horses, I think they are. And they came on here, They talked about their struggle of coming out of the closet, being in the Western industry, and they're in the pleasure world. But more than anything, they talked about they broke up as a couple. And they were a super team. Those two together made a tremendous amount of money, did tremendous amount of achievements in the all-round performance industry. Western pleasure, Western riding, horsemanship, showmanship, all that stuff. When they split up, they could have gone separate ways. But both of them were smart enough to realize if they stayed together as business partners, they could build an empire. Now, they admitted on live camera, hey, we had to go to therapy for a couple of years to figure out how to work together every day and how to let go of the hurt and a few things like that. I thought that took a tremendous amount of vulnerability to say that on camera, that this was difficult to have somebody you're intimate with and then it doesn't work out, but you're still going to build a career with them.
Right.
You're still going to treat them with respect. You're still going to show up day to day. And they said it was a struggle for a couple of years. But after that, they mastered it. And since that, 20 years later, they could write a check and buy me and you two times over. I mean, these motherfuckers have got some money, and they're smart. They are really smart men. But I just thought that I admired them for having the balls to say that on camera, that they realized they were better together as business partners but not lovers, and still accomplish great things in life, rather than letting their egos involved and their feelings and get involved and split up in business and personally. They never would have accomplished what they did separately.
That's awesome. How long have they been?
I think it was close to 35 years now. As a business model, they'd been together. And they're still together as a business model. They both have separate lives as far as people and partners and shit like that. But I thought that took a lot of vulnerability. I didn't lose respect for them. I gained respect for these guys tremendously. Their podcast went over extremely well. They're just nice guys, great business people. And again, great story. You know, Jason was so desperate to work with horses. He didn't come from a horse family. He would go to barns and braid manes and tails for free just to get in the barn. Just to be around horses, he went to barns and said, can I braid manes and tails and wash manes and tails if you'll let me be in the barn? That's how he got started. You know, he didn't have a barn to work out of, so when he started doing little lessons around the neighborhood, just drove up in an old shitty car. That was his office.
Where are they at now? Where's
they're in Pilot Point now.
Pilot Point.
Yeah. If you get a chance to interview them, do it. Jason and Charlie from High Point Performance Horses.
Right on.
Very, very successful. Not just in the all-round deal, but they're highly successful in the barrel racing world, in the standing stallions world. Oh, they're on all kinds of fucking things that are weird. Like they got fucking giraffes and they got turtles that fuck. And I mean, they got a whole exotic farm out there, which is, you know, it's kind of cool, but they just get out of their world.
Yeah.
They get out of the norm. But guys that I have a lot of respect for, but again, they put their egos at the door and said, what makes best business sense? And they both came to the table and said, together as a business partners, we're unbeatable. Separate, we're more vulnerable.
Yeah, I love it.
Love Clinton's Uncut and Real Raw podcast? Get the merch. T-shirts, caps, and shot glasses, all available from sweet and innocent to spicy and raw. Shop the full line at shop.downunderhorsemanship.com.
How do you know what it takes to become successful? Talk to someone who's done it. Clinton Anderson became a multi-millionaire by leveraging his passion for horse training into a global brand and media empire, starting with nothing but the change in his pocket and the will to succeed. In doing so, he revolutionized an industry and became a celebrity. Now, you can put his experience and advice to work for your business. With Clinton Anderson's business consultancy, you can tap into Clinton's unique perspective, hear his straight talk, and get his no-nonsense advice. Just imagine yourself armed with Clinton's hard-earned knowledge and entrepreneurial spirit. So whether you own a ranch or any sort of business at all, we invite you to discover the transformative power of Clinton Anderson's leadership and innovation in your business. Call 1-888-287-7432 to take your business to the next level today.
Another one.
I
Give me
love
another
it.
one on your list.
Man, I'll go with, I kind of broke these things into different buckets, right? So I had the Cowboy Tour, entrepreneurs, authors, Western media.
Go anywhere you want with it,
was
man. We're just
another one.
bullshit and cocktailing.
Western media was another one. But before I do that, I want to mention this. So I did my very first tour. I did a tour of all of the big ranches out in West Texas, and was my camera crew at the time. It was their first exposure to the Western world, and so I sat down with Dusty Burson at the Sixes, Trip Townsend, TJ Roberts at Tongue River, Buster Frierson, and Terry Forrest up in at the Stewart Ranch.
Yep.
And it was a really cool experience. I rented an RV, we drove out, and the consensus amongst those guys was these individuals, these people, this lifestyle is like it was like they said it gives us hope for humanity. Mm-hmm. And so it was interesting to hear that, because I'm in it, I'm around it.
Yeah.
But it is a different lifestyle, for those that are living it, that are truly living it, like those folks are. But Courtney Dehoff, are you familiar with Courtney?
Who's
Fancy
that?
Lady Cowgirl. She's in the Western media. Her quote says this: "Don't confuse the intermission for the finale."
Okay, explain that.
So don't confuse the intermission for the finale. I think it can be interpreted a number of different ways, whether it be a setback, it be a pivot, or nothing is final. No single defeat equals a final defeat.
That's right.
No bad day equals a bad life.
That's right.
And so there's things that happen throughout our life. It's up to us to choose our perspective and how we're going to navigate through them.
Yeah.
But she's a very intelligent girl. She's doing her thing. She's got a brand, Fancy Lady Cowgirl. She's doing.
So she sells clothes, or what does she do?
No, she's more of a public speaker and
Motivator.
Yeah, she's very much a motivator.
So she does public speaking engagements?
Yep. Did
awesome.
some. I think she spoke at the FAA convention and a few others, but. Just a motivating girl and doing her thing. She just got back from Australia. I saw her on social media. I don't know exactly what she was doing. Maybe the Futurity. Isn't that going on right now?
Yeah. It's usually around June, July. Because remember, it's summer here, so it's winter in Australia.
Right.
So whatever the season is in America, it's the complete opposite in Australia. So yeah, the cutting Futurity in Australia is around July sometime, or June, July, somewhere in there.
Yeah, but I think so her, and she's doing her thing in a bold way, combining Fancy Lady with being a cowgirl.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
I like the talk
and
show.
really
She sounds interesting.
She is, and really anybody doing this Western media thing, I think we need more of it. I just sat down with Dale Brisby, and he's the pioneer in our industry.
I loved the interview. I thought it was a great interview.
Oh, right on. He's
really
a great
enjoyed
guy.
it. Yeah, really enjoyed the interview. I think he's a great character, and I just enjoyed a lot of it.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. Getting back to that quote that girl said, it's similar to what you said. You can't control the circumstances that happen to you in life, but you can control how you deal with it. Mm-hmm. You can't control.
Most of the time, that's all you can control.
You can't control the shit that happens to you, but you can control how you react to it. And kind of leads into the other point that I said earlier in the podcast. I know it's shitty when it happens, but the worst things that have ever happened to me in my career have been the greatest blessings. I could not see it in the middle of the storm. Mm-hmm. I could not see it when the fucking dust is flying and the spears are getting chucked at you. You know what I mean? But when the dust settled, it's like it makes you either pivot in life and go a new direction that just opens up a whole nother area to you, but something positive comes of it. Like my mother said, when one door closes, there will always be another door that opens. You just have to be ready for it. You have to be willing to walk through it, not stay in the shitty room you're in. Walk through that door.
Yeah.
I'm not a highly religious guy. Not that I have a problem with the religion, and if people want to go to church 8 times a day, knock yourself out. Get after it. And I'm all support for it. I really am. I don't judge them for it. But I also do believe everything happens for a reason. So you can call that divine fate, whatever you want to call it. But I do believe in karma. Karma's a bitch. You know what I mean? I don't worry about getting fucking even with the people that fuck me. Karma's going to take care of that for me.
Yeah.
Karma will even up shit. It never happens quite as quick as you want it to happen, but karma takes care of the assholes in life. It really does. But everything happens for a reason.
Karma is the invisible referee.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Do you follow very much Stoic philosophy?
What do you mean by that?
Have
Give
you
me an
heard of the
example.
term amor fati?
No.
The love of fate, meaning to not only embrace what is happening, but to love it, to find gratitude, to look for the good in everything that is happening.
Yeah.
It goes in line with what you were
It
just
does.
saying.
I think it's sometimes when shit's going bad in your life and the house is burning down, it's hard to love it. You know what I mean? In the moment, but again, through experience, I've learnt now not to panic. Normally, I know in the early part of my life when shit would really get bad, I'd be like panicking. This is fucking bad. The house is burning down. I gotta panic. This is terrible. Now I don't love it, but I also know that I know good shit's going to happen from it.
Yeah, you don't love that your house burned down. You don't
Yeah.
want to, you don't wish to go out and get into a car accident.
No.
These are unwanted
Yes.
situations. However, like you just said, you don't know what that's going to lead to. Therefore, you have to think it's happening for you.
I know something good's going to come out of it. Matt Gaines said the same thing. 10 times he's been in the shitter with his mind, with his horses, and he always comes out of it every day, every time with something more positive. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I truly do believe that.
Yeah.
Who else you got on your list?
I'll go with an author. I don't think I've read anything from an author yet. So Stephen Kotler, man, he is he writes about flow state, right? And
Flow state,
and he studies peak performers. And I was going to say he's the godfather of flow, but that would be Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who wrote a book called Flow and another book called Creativity. But Stephen, I was fortunate to get him on the show. I mean, he's a best-selling author, written dozens of books. And one of his quotes says, "We're all capable of so much more than we know. I don't get the point in trying to do something if you're not going to try to be the best in the world at it. I'm not saying you're going to be the best in the world at it. Of course, you're going to get your ass kicked, but you get one shot at this life. I want to make it count."
I love that. See, that motivates the shit out of me. Shit like that.
Yeah, when I listen back to it, I'm like, oh shit, I forgot he said that.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck what it is. Whatever you want to be, try to be the best at it. And you're right, you may not be the best at it, but have the passion to be the best at it.
Yeah.
Have the fire in your belly to be the best of it. Don't be average. The world's just full of average people that don't try. Nothing demotivates me more than just average people that have no drive, no fucking backbone, no guts. I'd rather somebody hate my guts with passion because I can respect them for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Be my enemy, but be it with passion.
I like the quote, mediocrity happens one compromise at a time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Right, let me throw out a name here.
Let's hear it.
Troy Compton. Troy was a great guest, pleasure horse trainer, and now does the all-round and reiners and things. And I brought this up before because I've tried to take away the stigma. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'll say it out loud anyway. There's a stigma in the Western industry about money. There's a stigma about being successful with money. There's a stigma that you aren't a true artist or you're not a true horseman if you're not broke. Like there's this almost hidden rule. If you don't die an artist and you don't die broke in a single wide trailer, that you weren't a purist. You weren't there for the horse. You weren't there for the right reasons. I think that's full of shit. I've seen too many old horse trainers die broke. Die literally with nothing to their name, nobody around them, no money for medical, no money for hospitals. I don't think that's honor. I don't think that's how you celebrate somebody's life, by the last years of their life just basically being homeless. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I've tried to talk about money in my podcast a lot, how to become successful, how to make money, how to invest money, how to not be ashamed of it. Talk about money and because we all need it. You know, if somebody's rich in any other industry, it's celebrated. If you get rich selling real estate, you're celebrated. If you get rich selling cars, you're celebrated. But you get rich in the horse industry, everybody thinks you're an asshole because you got rich. Because let's face it, Mike, the horse industry is hard to get rich in, isn't it? It's a hard living. There's a lot of people in the horse industry that make a living. There's very few that get rich. I'll say it again. A lot of people make a living doing it, but very few get rich. I've tried to change that culture, that let's stop being ashamed of making money. Let's stop being ashamed of being broke. I can't tell you how many horse trainers in the last 3 years since I started talking about this walked up to me and said, Clinton, I raised all my prices. I'm making way more money now. Thank you. I just needed somebody to give me the balls to say it's okay to charge what I'm worth. It's okay to have quality. I don't need to be constantly worried that if the trainer down the road is $50 a week cheaper than me, I'm going to go out of business, you know? And talking about, and the reason why we're moving into this with money is Troy admitted on camera that his first marriage, his wife didn't pay any of the taxes. For 2 or 3 years, he's out busting his ass, training horses, working his ass off. Where a lot of trainers have their wives doing the books. A lot of trainers do that. You know, they do the horse training, wife does the billing, etc. And he said, I didn't realize it, but none of my taxes were paid. And he owed several $100,000 to the IRS. And by the time he figured that out, he was already in debt. He got out of that financial trouble. He worked his ass off. He hustled. He put deals together. And he got out of it. But the lesson he said to me, he said, Clinton, it didn't have to be that hard. If I would have kept an eye on my money, if I would have kept an eye on my taxes, if I would have kept an eye on my financial situation, I never would have got in this place. But he said, my wife was doing it, so I just assumed it was done right. I disagree. And he disagrees now too. I don't care if you have your partner doing your books. You look at them. You go to the accountant once a year and look at it. You have an outside audit done on your books every 2 or 3 years. When I started doing that, when I started having an outside audit company go through my financials about every 2 to 4 years, and I never let the accountants know when it was going to happen. Just anywhere from 2 to 4 years, an outside company is going to come out and look up your skirt. Oh, it's amazing what they'll find. It's amazing how everybody's on their game when they know they're going to be checked.
Is that how you found out about the down under deal?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. What tipped me off the first time was when I knew I was in trouble, my gut fucking hit the floor when I walked into my accountant's office and I said, I'm going to have an outside audit come in and do an audit of the company. And he got real defensive real quick. What do you mean? I said, I'm just going to have somebody come in and look at what we're doing. Maybe there's some better processes. Maybe they can show us how to save money. Just outside perspective. He got real defensive.
Were you doing that to get to see what his reaction
was?
was?
No, I just got some good advice. A guy said to me, have an outside audit done. Check where your money's going, Clinton. And when my accountant, in-house accountant, got real defensive about having somebody come and check his work, I got a sick feeling in my stomach. I've learned over the years now, I'm not that old, but I'm 49, and I've learned this. I can't tell, when my gut says there's a problem, I really listen to it now. I can't exactly pinpoint sometimes where the problem is, but when my gut screams at me, it says, Clinton, you're about to get a fucking, grab a hold of something, it's coming. I really pay attention now. I don't ignore that feeling. And I got that feeling with that accountant that when he got so defensive about somebody coming in and checking our books and checking our work, that's when I'm like, this ain't good. You're in some real trouble here. So that's your first clue. When you go to anybody that's handling your books, your wife, an assistant, a bookkeeper, an accountant, honest people welcome somebody reviewing them. Honest people say, great, come on in. Tell me what you see. If there's some way we can save money, I'd love to know about it. When they say that, you're not in any trouble. When they get butthurt, they get defensive, they get real suspicious, you know there's some funny business going on.
Yeah.
And the sad part, and it happened to me and it happens to a lot of people, the people that steal from you financially are typically the people you'd never think will. Like an accountant by oath is supposed to help you, isn't he? That's his business, is to take care of your money and save you money and save you taxes. You'd be amazed how many people embezzle from you that are ethically bound not to do it, but they're in your books.
How is that guy doing? I'm curious.
A lot of it was I had a rubber stamp. That's how a lot of it was. I had a rubber stamp with my signature. Because I was on the road so much and so busy for so many years, I didn't sign a lot of my checks.
Was he writing checks to himself?
Well, writing checks to fake companies, writing checks to different vendors and getting paid back.
No shit.
A lot of it was waste. A rubber stamp is how they fucked me. Yeah, rubber stamp is how they fucked me. Part of it, not all of it, but probably 2/3 of it. A lot of it was waste too. Just waste. Just pure fucking waste.
Yeah.
When I started checking my own credit card statements, my own invoices, when I signed off on every invoice, I signed every check, I was embarrassed, to be honest with you, Mike, how much waste was there. I was embarrassed of how much waste was there. But my point, getting back to Troy was hustling and building a business. And 3 years later, he realizes he owes $500,000 to the government. That's a hard nut to come back from. That's a lot of money and he did it, and he paid off all these debts. But he said, man, Clinton, did it put some stress on me. If I would have just asked my wife, hey, where are our taxes?
Yeah.
Where are our books? Show me my books. I want to go to the accountant and double check we're doing everything right. But he said, I just assumed it was done right. And I made the same mistake, so I'm not beating up on my buddy Troy Compton here. But I just tell everybody, and I know there'll be a lot of wives that hate my guts after saying this interview, and I don't give a shit, okay? They already hate me anyway, okay? Whoever's handling your money, make sure they know you're going to double check them. Make sure they know there's an outside firm that's going to check. And if they're honest, they'll welcome that look. If they're dishonest, they'll get as butthurt as you can get. Mm-hmm. So that's your first sign that somebody's diddling the books or not even doing your books, period. Not even handling business, even if they're not stealing from you, but they're just not, like in her case, she wasn't paying the taxes. Does that make sense? She wasn't stealing from her husband. She just wasn't paying taxes. That's kind of a problem in this country. You know what I mean? So I like to bring up the subjects that everybody privately talks about, but nobody wants to have the balls publicly to talk about them. Mm-hmm. And money's one of them. I want to take the shame away from money. Okay? It's not, we all need it. We all got to survive on it. Why can't we just talk about it as adults and work it out? You know, why does it have to be this big secret? Mm-hmm. I never forget this. You know, my first wife, her grandpa died. So when it came to the will, her dad got fucked out of a bunch of money, is the quick end of the story. The two sisters got a bunch of cash and a bunch of money, and the brother that basically kept the dad alive and did all the farming and basically took care of his father got very little, and the two sisters that did jack shit got all the assets. And I can remember them bitching around the kitchen table about this. I probably would have been 22, 23. They were bitching about how the father the son that did all the work got none of the money. And I was kind of confused, and I said, well, I don't understand why you didn't know what the will was. You knew he was sick for 2 years. It wasn't like he just died in a car accident. You knew he was sick. You knew he was going to die. I said, why didn't you guys check because his will hadn't been updated in 20 years. That's how long it had been since it was updated. And I said, why didn't you guys ask him what his will was to see if it had been updated? I'll never forget this. This dumb bitch in-law of mine, her name was Barb. She looked at me, said...
Did you say Bob?
Barb, that was her name, Barb, B-A-R-B.
Oh, Barb.
Barb, short for Barbara. Dumb bitch she was. She looked at me at the table and she said, I'll never forget this. When I said that, like a logical question, you know he's going to fucking die. It's not a surprise. Why didn't you bring up the will and find out what was in it? Because my attitude is when somebody's going to die, he's the only referee. It's his money. So why let the referee die and then argue how the game's called? Does that make sense? Yeah. Understand, the only guy that can call the game is still alive. So when I said, why didn't you ask where the money's going, who's getting it? And you know what she did? She looked at me, and I'll never forget this. She looked at me and she pointed at me. She said, we don't talk money at the table. We don't talk, typical big Midwest bullshit thing, highly religious thing. We don't talk money at the table. Oh, that makes sense. Let's not talk money, and let's let the family get destroyed. It destroyed that family. Brothers and sisters don't talk to each other anymore. Thanksgiving, Christmas. Money destroys families when it's not handled properly. Mm-hmm. So rather than just as adults, we all sit down and have a reasonable conversation about what's going on. Oh, no, we don't talk money at the table. That's the ignorance of money. That's how I look at it. You might think I'm a piece of shit for it, and that's fine. But that to me blew my mind. Why wait till money destroys your family because of arguments when we could just have an adult, logical conversation about it? Somebody say, hey, has this been updated in 20 years? No? Well, Grandpa, maybe we should update this. It's been 20 years. Yeah. I can't tell you how many families, Mike, I have seen destroyed over money and people dying. Because they don't take care of business. When you die, it's extremely stressful on the people you leave behind. I update my trust and will and estate every 2 years. And when I say update it, I just look at it. Maybe I don't update it, maybe I change it, but I look at it every 2 years. Because when I die, the people that I love, that I've left money to, they're already stressed. I don't want more stress. I want my death to be as clean and as painless on them as possible. Where most people die, it's such a shit show. Bank accounts, debt, where the money is, where the accounts is, where's passwords. I'm a nut. I've got it all written out in the safe. I have a system. I have letters written to people that I love. I have everything written out. So if I got dropped dead today in a car accident, bang, it's like clockwork. Within a week, everything's settled. Because I don't want to stress these people that I care about. Right. But money, people won't talk about it. We're going to take a little break. When we get back, I want you to give your opinion on money, if you will, in the Western industry, and then give me another name. Silver Spurs Equine owns and stands over 30 champion performance horse stallions. They strive to provide options to top prospects for every preference and budget. Reining is the main focus of Silver Spur's breeding program, and they have developed their $1 Million Challenge as an incredible incentive that offers huge payouts to the champions of 7 different reining competitions around the world. Silver Spurs also raises about 150 foals per year at their ranch in Oklahoma, and each one is offered to the public for sale. This provides a wide variety of options to buyers looking for their next prospect, and most would be eligible for the $1 Million Challenge. Find the perfect cross of traditional performance horse bloodlines combined with the modern dynamics of today's performance horses. All available prospects can be found at silverspurssalehorses.com.
Ever wanted to own a champion? Clinton Anderson, world-class horse trainer and competitor, has been spotting and developing promising horses into greatness for decades. Now, he is offering an exclusive ownership opportunity to create champion horses. Introducing Clinton Anderson's Performance Partnership. In this exclusive program, you and Clinton will co-own a top-tier performance horse that will be meticulously trained and cared for by Clinton Anderson himself. This isn't just an investment. It's a first-hand experience of horsemanship excellence. With Clinton's help and advice, you'll choose the horse that resonates with your ambitions, and Clinton takes the reins from there. From training to stabling, from the practice arena to the winner's circle, Clinton's unwavering dedication ensures that your equine athlete reaches its full potential. This partnership is about more than business. It's about a shared passion for equestrian excellence. And Clinton Anderson isn't just your trainer. He's your partner, fully invested in every horse's success. Together, you'll share in the excitement, the prestige, and the profits. Membership is strictly limited to ensure each investor receives personalized attention and commitment. It's your chance to be part of an exclusive equine ownership community that combines the excitement of competition with the satisfaction of success. Don't miss your opportunity to join Clinton Anderson's Performance Partnership, a unique collaboration that transforms dreams into equine champions. Experience the heart of horsemanship excellence. Find out more at ClintonAndersonPerformanceHorses.com.
So, after the break now, Mike, tell me about what you think about money. You think I'm wrong about talking about a taboo subject? Because you come from a different world. You're in the real estate world.
Yeah.
So making money in that world's not a dirty subject.
Yeah, I'm always curious to know. That's actually a question that I ask guests is, what is your relationship with money? I'm trying to think back to my childhood. You know, I came from a middle class, but it wasn't like it was looked down upon. I can speak to what I do now, which is real estate. Typically, the properties we're buying, it's one of the 3 Ds: distress, divorce, or death.
Yeah.
You know, and then the death one, as you were alluding to, is sometimes messy. and it's because those folks didn't talk about it.
Take care of business.
Yeah, but before it gets to that point. But I don't know. I think I'd like to think I have a healthy relationship, with money, because of the mindset that I have created, and that all really stems from Rich Dad Poor Dad and Robert Kiyosaki.
Yes.
Totally different mindset than what society conditions us.
Did you ever read the book The Richest Man in Babylon?
Yes.
Great book, wasn't it?
Yes.
Little funky the way it was read, or reads, because it's read back in Babylon times.
Yep.
But I thought that was a great damn book, The Richest Man in Babylon. If you haven't read it or listened to it, I listen to books on audio. I don't have time to read. That was a great book. Very, very. Did you enjoy it or not really personally?
No, I did, and that's not when I didn't listen to it, but I do like to read the book and listen to them at the same time. Yeah. The most recent one, for those keeping score at home, is Don't Believe Everything You Think.
Yeah?
It's a pretty good book. I can't think of the author's name, but I like to read them and have a hard copy because I highlight and I tab them. And then I'm going to have like a note card that is like an index, and I'll write down what I find interesting and put the page number so I can go back to it. Otherwise, it just gets lost, much like the podcast and me having to go back through these things. There's so much good content in there that I just didn't
Have you read
document.
much of Malcolm Gladwell's stuff?
Yes, I've read Outliers.
That was one of my favorite books.
Yes.
Yeah, because the hidden secret between all these successful, book on Outliers, if people don't know, is Malcolm Gladwell basically interviewed, extremely successful people in different industries, and to find out what made them so successful. Why did they get so rich? What made them so famous? And this will disappoint a lot of people and piss a few people off, but the one common thing was 10,000 hours. They all had to do 10,000 hours to hone their skills, 10,000 hours to get really good at what they did. So there's no way of getting around the work, is there, Mike?
Well, I think the short answer is no, but it can be perceived as play. I think of singer-songwriters I sit down with they just grew up in that environment. So those 10,000 hours started on a porch somewhere with a guitar, playing with their family, having fun.
But see, the 10,000 hours wasn't forced. They wanted to do it.
Right. It becomes effortless.
It wasn't like they were counting the hours like, oh, there's hour one.
Right.
Okay, there's hour two. That won't work. These people wanted to put those hours in.
Yeah.
They wanted to do it. It wasn't forced down their throat. But the key denominator was they had to do 10,000 hours to find their skills. Like before that, in the book, if you remember, he talked about the Beatles. The Beatles, when they hit the scene, seemed like they just a one-hit wonder. They not one-hit wonder, but they came out with a bang.
Yeah, like an overnight success.
He said they went to Germany for many years and honed their skills. Played at bars for free, played for $50. They played a lot in Europe for many years, honing their skill set, so that when they were ready, they were there. Matt Gaines said the same thing the other day. He said, you'll go through periods as a trainer where you'll have average stock. You won't have that great one or a horse that you really want to win on. And he said, it's important to train the average ones too, because when you're ready, when that good one gets into your barn, you'll be ready.
Yeah.
Your skills will be ready. Your timing will be ready. He said, if you just wait for the great one to train one, you'll never get one trained. You got to train the average ones too, so that when the great one shows up, you'll have your knife sharp. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Beatles. I bet nobody could tell you about the Quarrymen. The Quarrymen were the Beatles before they were the Beatles. Like, they changed their name.
Oh, they did?
Yeah,
Did not
and
know
so somebody said that to me whenever I started this podcast, and I've talked about this before, is, I had a lot of resistance. This thing was an idea in my brain for 2 years before I did anything with it, the Converse Cowboy. And somebody gave me some sage advice, and that's what got me to start this thing. He said, can you tell me what Joe Rogan's first 20 podcasts were like? And I was like, no, I can't. And he's like, exactly. Nobody remembers the beginning. They see what you see now. Like you just mentioned, the Beatles as an overnight success. They didn't see them fucking with sound equipment and stuff going wrong and trying to find gigs. But you got to start. That's my point. It's like you just start
somewhere.
opportunities begin to present themselves in ways you couldn't have imagined. And
what do you get out of your podcast? You know, we both are in a position where we don't have to make the podcast financially successful. We both do it because we want to do it. We love doing it. And it doesn't have to basically turn a profit. It'd be nice if it does, but that's not our motivator, okay? We do other things to make money. What do you get out of the podcast?
I question that often.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I do. You know, there was a time we were rocking and rolling. I had a camera crew, and we parted ways. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
we
fair
parted
enough.
ways. And so I said, you know what? You can slow down, but you can't quit. And so I learned how to edit. I learned how to edit my own podcast,
Yep.
audio only. And so I started doing that. And I have to ask myself that a lot, because my brain, I have two sides of it. I have this creative side and this entrepreneur side. The entrepreneur side has been in training a whole lot longer than this
Yes.
creative side. And so I try to equate it to, like, what is my ROI? What's the ROI on my return? You know, my time invested into this thing. And so through meditating, through journaling, the answers come to me, and it's like, well, this thing is a return on my experience. Being able to sit down with individuals like you, the experience of a one-on-one conversation, what I get to learn through those conversations, and also what I get to deliver to other people through that conversation, and also for the personal growth, because that's where it all began for me. I was in a very dark place when this thing began.
Yeah. Okay.
And I went through a divorce and trying to battle my ego, and still do, you know. And so so it's been good to be able to, because this was not always comfortable for me to just sit down, and I have to remind myself to be grateful for. There's a little life hack for people out there that may get anxious or nervous going into a room of new people. When we can take the attention off ourselves and place it onto others, meaning when I walk into a room full of strangers, I'm wishing blessings on everybody in this room. It's like this superpower, you know? It's like this weight's lifted off of me. Again, the spotlight effect. Nobody's fucking looking at me when I walk in the room.
Yeah.
Maybe they are, you know, but most likely they're not.
Yeah.
And so what that does, having this foundation of, or this looking at life through this lens of gratitude, man, I'm just glad to be here. I think this is a fucking blessing to be able to sit across from you and have this conversation. Hopefully the folks at home get something out of this, and I'm going to learn through the process.
Well, you do a wonderful job. You're a great host. I love listening to your podcast.
Thank you.
You know, people said to me when I told a couple of people said, well, why are you having Mike come on? He has another podcast. You know, isn't he your competition? I said, no, we're not in competition with each other. We're both trying to build people up. We're both trying to, I want my listeners to listen to your shit. If your listeners listen to my stuff, it's great. But I want to build people up. I'm doing the podcast because, one, from a selfish perspective, I just enjoy talking to winners. I get energy from being around winners and positive people and people that have accomplished a lot. I get a lot of personal energy from it. It's always baffled me in life that when I see somebody doing really well, somebody even I don't know, that's financially doing well or in their business or career, I think positive stuff about them. It just motivates me. I have always gone that way. But I've also noticed in life, a lot of people don't think that way. When they see somebody doing well, it pisses them off. They talk shit about them. They talk negative about them, and they want to drag them down. So I've always had trouble understanding that concept. Me, great people make me want to be greater. When I'm around people that work harder than me, I want to work harder than them. When I'm around people that make more money than me, I want to make more. It does nothing but motivate me. But I don't think that's the norm with a lot of people have that attitude that want to celebrate winners. So I just love talking to people that are great at their job and great at what they did and picking their brain, because I'm looking for that one little piece of ingredient that I can take from them. I'm looking for that one thing that says they do that better than everybody else. I'm going to take that and put that in my bag of tools. And two, it was unexpected this happened, is again, anywhere I go in public now, you know, at least in the Western world, you know, not in the general public, but Western world, I can't tell you the amount of people that walk up to me and shake my hand and introduce themselves. Hey, Clinton, great to meet you. I love the podcast. It's making me work harder, making me strive better. I'm doing better. It's uplifting to me. That's cool. And especially these people are under 30. These are not older people. These are kids. You know when I say kids, they're young adults. And I think we've lost a lot of that hunger in young people now to kick ass. As the generations have got younger, we've got lazier. We've got more pea-hearted, a bunch of pussies. And I love it when young people have that fire in their belly. Their fire in their belly to kick ass. And I'm noticing that people are walking up to me saying that. I love listening to the guests. I love listening to their struggles. It's made me work harder. You know, one of the greatest compliments I got so far in the podcast is this happened just a couple of weeks ago. I got an email from a lady that said, Clinton, I probably suspect you'll never read this email, okay? But I want to send it anyway. She said, my husband's a firefighter and he got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I can't remember exactly what cancer it was, but it was stage 4 and it was pretty serious. And she said, he's in hospital, getting chemo. It's pretty fucking serious. And she said, I'm a barefoot trimmer. So she said, since my husband doesn't have an income now, I pretty much had to triple my income overnight to try to pay for bills, keep ourselves alive, keep our family functioning. And she said, you know, to triple your business overnight has been stressful at the very least, let alone dealing with that and a sick husband on chemo. And she said, listening to the guests struggle, like Rodney Carrington living in his truck for 2 years. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Listening to the guests struggle, she said, has given me so much motivation driving from job to job to job. She said, it's made me passionate, made me hungry, and it's really eased my pain of what I'm going through. That made me feel $1 million that a lady that's going through some serious shit that life throws at you is getting enjoyment from conversations we're having to uplift people. Like I said, the internet's full of trolls that want to drag people down. I want to build people up. Mm-hmm. I want to make people successful, make people try harder. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
That's what 100%. I'm getting out of it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. You know, this platform, the Converse Cowboy, allows me the opportunity to sit down with a Clinton Anderson, with a Steven Kotler, with a Matt Gaines for an hour to an hour and a half, 2 hours. I have to think that without this platform, that those conversations don't happen. So again, like you said, selfishly, I gain from
yes.
that, and I get to ask them anything I want. And for the most part, everybody's an open book.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm gaining.
There's a lot of good that the trainers are giving to each other and giving to people up and coming, young people coming up, and that's what it's all about. Is how do you uplift the next set of people? How do you make them better? You know. Mm-hmm. Closing thoughts here. Somebody, if you could name one person you got the most inspiration from, probably a hard question, but I'll ask it. The most inspiration you got out of any of the podcast guests?
The most inspiration.
Somebody that made you walk out of that room saying, fuck yeah, I want to attack life, or fuck
Man,
yeah, I'm on the right track.
That's a tough one. People ask me a similar question. They ask, who is your favorite guest? And they're all special in their own unique way.
They are. Maybe you can't answer it.
No, don't let me out that easy. Don't let me out that easy. And it like my mind goes to the most recent ones, like the one I just did with Hayes Carl. There was a deep conversation. Like we were both, we were fucking in it, you know, and it got heavy. And that was very meaningful. It was a meaningful conversation, very pure. I feel like there were no distractions, no inhibitions. We were just having a good conversation. Man, I don't know. I'll go with my good friend Jesse Lennox.
Yep.
Just because he's just such a positive motherfucker, man. He's just good to be around.
Yeah.
And you can't not be around. You can't be happy. You can't be grateful and be in a negative mood at the same time. And so when you're around that guy,
it's counterproductive.
Yeah. Well, it just can't happen.
Yeah, it can't happen.
Yeah, it just can't happen. And spent a lot of time with him, and so I'd say, his interview.
For me, it would have been Rodney Carrington. That to me, that mindset of focus on the positive. It doesn't matter how small it is of what you're doing, and ignore the negative. You know what I mean? Focus on how small that is. You know, that Jason and Jason and Martin. Jason and Charlie. I'm having a brain fart. Jason and Charlie. They said to me, when one of our ladies walks out of a horsemanship class and she's or Western riding, and she's fucked up the whole pattern. It's been a disaster. She made every mistake she could make. He said, they both said, when she walks out, she's already beating herself up. She knows where she messed up. She's already upset, etc. What they focus on is, man, your outfit looked wonderful. Man, the horse is shiny. Did you see how that jacket you had on matched your saddle pad? And they said within 5 or 6 minutes, they've gone from tears to, man, I kind of look good. My horse looked good. And they build them up. And they say, and then she'll say, but I messed up the lead change. Yeah, you did. But did you see the 3 you nailed?
Yeah.
They keep talking about the positives of the pattern and how good they looked. They don't discard what went wrong, but they don't focus on what went wrong. They focus on what went right.
Mm-hmm. And there's another at-bat coming.
So they took a lady that's in tears walking out of the arena to 10 minutes later, fuck yeah, when do we nominate again? When can we do this again?
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Powerful.
That's
awesome. That's what Rodney Carrington was talking about, is focus on what's going right. Sometimes I've watched some of my runs lately and it's like, goddamn, I walked in and I had the right shirt on. You know what I mean? Like, it might be that small. You know what I mean? It might be like, man, we walked in really good before that timer started. Did you see the drape rein on that cutter? I mean, that was the best drape rein I've ever seen. Start there.
Yeah.
If that's where you got to start there.
Yeah.
You know, every trainer's looking for an edge on their competition. You know, whether it's a better horse, better way to train it. But really, in reality, all the trainers have got access to great horses. All the trainers are doing a lot of the same techniques. To me, the next greatest edge on competition, whether you're reining, cutting, cow horse, eventing, or racing, is keeping your horses sound and ready for competition. For the last 4 years, I've been sparring my horses by Cold Creek Equine Spa, and I spar them for 20 minutes every day after I ride them at 36 degrees. It ices down all 4 legs. What a game changer. My vet bills have been cut back by 50%. My horse's soundness has been gone through the roof, okay? People think that spas are expensive. It'll pay for itself just on saving on vet bills in the first 18 months. Spas have been around for a long time, but for years they've been junk. They are broken more than they actually work. You needed to be like a plumbing engineer to make the some bitches work. Cold Creek Equine are using the latest technology, industrial strength machines that are basically maintenance free. Anybody can operate this thing. Even me as a horse trainer, I can operate it. And more than anything, it stays working. Go to their website, check them out. It's a game changer. In the next 10 years, if you're a professional horse trainer, if you don't have a spa, you will be left behind on your equine soundness.
Nothing would please them more than to see this old piece of shit in a coffin. Oh, they want to drive a steel knife down a stupid fucking throat, and they talk about it quite often.
Righto, guys, we got more hate mail here. This is from Alan Black. Okay, Alan, let's let some steam off, motherfucker. I've never heard potty mouthing like this where I live, especially the motherfucker one. God damn it. Disgusting. Queensland is probably the worst state for it, and Anderson comes not far from me. He's full of it, should stick to his horse training. Alan, you clearly are not from Australia, motherfucker, because 99% of people in Australia talk just like me. That's the way we were raised, that's the way we talk, and if you don't like it, fuck off. I don't care.
Who is a guest or guest plural that you would want to have on, like the giants that seem
that
out
I
of
want to
reach?
have on?
Yeah, that may seem out of reach right now for you. But like you just really want to have a conversation.
I'd like to have that Dale Brisby on.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I've seen his. I like his social media. I think he's funny as shit. I loved your interview. I'd like to have him on. I'd like to have, what is it, JB Mooney? Is it Mooney? Is it, how does he say his name? The Bill
I think
Rider?
so, yeah.
Yep, I'd love to have him on. I'd love to have somebody like Ron White on, somebody like that, Bill Burr.
Yeah,
you know what I
right
mean?
on, yeah.
Some comedians on. I'm just, just enjoying where this is, because every time I get done with a guest, when I get off camera, I say, hey, who do you think would be an interesting conversation? And that's how I lead to the next person.
Oh, right on.
You know what I mean? It's not a rocket science how I do this. I just say, hey, who'd be interesting conversation? So, Mike, I want to ask you the same question. Who's your big fish to haul in the boat? Who would you love to have on your podcast? If you could have magic wand now, man, you could have anything you want.
Yeah, I think about this often, and there's a handful, and it's folks that have influenced my life, and I would truly just love to. It's kind of scary too, though, because they say never meet your heroes, you know. And
In case you're disappointed.
Yeah, and so one would be Robert Kiyosaki.
Yep.
Because without that guy and him sharing his wisdom, I wouldn't be where I am today with the real estate game, and so. I think about that too. I'll mention this and then I'll mention the next few guests. But as I share content, I'm writing a book right now. And so I'm very conscious of, like, I don't ever want to come across as a guru or that I have the answer. So even in this podcast, like, whatever I say, I don't want it to be perceived as like, oh, he's trying to tell somebody how to live. That's not what I'm doing. I share my experiences, you know.
And you can take that from that what you want. Yeah.
Yes. And so that's what the Converse Cowboy is. And I think about it like that, like, what if Robert Kiyosaki didn't show up and share his knowledge, you know? So hopefully, through my experience, I can share some knowledge that helps somebody.
So he's the big fish you'd like to get
along
in
the way. Robert Kiyosaki, McConaughey, a musician, Ryan Bingham. I've been following that guy and listening to him for years, and just a truly inspiring story, you know? And another guy named Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Dr. Joe, what does he do, mate?
He's written a number of books. You Are the Placebo, Becoming Supernatural. He pretty much took the law of attraction, what we read like in Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill, and he put science and data behind it and brain scans to validate everything that Napoleon Hill was talking about in Think and Grow Rich. And so he does a number of podcasts, and he's one of those that his content is out there, but I'd love to just sit and pick his brain just for a little bit.
Yeah,
I nerd out on all that.
Tell me, I wanted, when I decide to do the podcast, I didn't want to do it through Zoom. I didn't want to do it through a computer because I feel like you lose that interaction. You lose that face contact, that body language, that just camaraderie between two people having a conversation. Yes, it's more expensive to get people here. Yes, it's bigger pain in the ass for everybody schedule-wise, etc. Do you agree? You know, I noticed a lot of yours, or all of yours, are in person. Is that something you insisted on from the beginning or not? Did you start through a computer, or when did you go to in person? Or tell me your thoughts on that. Do you disagree with me that it's better or worse in person?
No, I much prefer in person. I started the year of COVID, so it was forced on me to do Zoom, you know, or just a phone call.
Yeah.
And when I went to audio only, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like the Steven Kotler interview was through a phone. And like the behind the scenes that nobody ever sees, like the audio was shit. And I had to send it to like a magician to get the audio right, you know, just for that interview. But no, I prefer being in person. The most recent one, Steve Earle. I don't know if you know, if you listen to his music, Copperhead Road.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
yes.
Okay, I don't know a lot of names of music, but I recognize their music.
So Steve Earle's a big fish for me. You know, he's one of the all-time great singer-songwriters. And that was one of the things. I was like, I'd love to do it in person. His people were like, we probably can't make that happen.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd love to do a Zoom. You know, it's like, if we can't do that, we'll do this.
Yeah.
So, yes, I agree with you. I'd much rather the in-person interaction.
I've drawn a line in the sand. I won't do it over Zoom. Because I don't want to enjoy that experience. I want to meet this person, have a cocktail with them, look them in the eyes, shake their hand, have that interaction. It's, you know, the podcast is called Uncut and Real Raw. I want it to get real raw. I think that's difficult to do over the phone. It's difficult to do through a computer, to get somebody to be that vulnerable to spill the beans on their successes in life and failures in life through a phone. So if a guest won't come here, I won't do them. Okay, and I've lost some guests because of that, and I respect that. I'm not mad about it, and I understand people's schedules. Like I said, I wanted to produce one a month, but now it's more like one every other month because, again, getting my schedule to line up, the guest schedule, and the studio schedule to all line up is like herding cats.
Have you ever thought about doing them in Fort Worth? Sorry to the studio here, but... Have you thought about doing them in DFW?
But we've got the set, and I want to keep the set looking the same and all that. Yeah, I've thought about that. It would be easier. And I could do them, quite honestly, I could do them at my ranch way cheaper. I could go to my ranch and film it all there and be way cheaper. But I wanted a podcast to be different. You know, the studio, the set, how we do things is, everybody said, your stuff is different to everybody else's. Everybody's got a podcast where they're sitting around a kitchen table bullshitting. I wanted something to look different, something to feel different, something to be completely different from just an interview over a phone or an interview over a computer. So, yeah, I thought about it, but I just don't want to do it. I don't want to cheapen it up. I'd rather quit the podcast. If I can't guess to want to come here, I'd rather shut the whole podcast down than lower, in my opinion, not judging people, my standard on what I want it to look like.
Yeah.
And how I want it to feel. Like your studio, when I went to that, had a great feel to it. Even though it's a small little building, it was comfortable, had a great vibe to it. It's like a vibe. It's like a feel to it.
Right.
You know, and you have an advantage over me is Weatherford's a lot more central to a lot of cut and horse trainers and horse trainers in general. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
But if people think there's value in my podcast and want to come here, they'll come here. Like Steve Ross, he flew out from Arizona 2 days ago. When I called him up and said, Steve, you want to be on? Hell yeah. When do I be there? Because he recognized that it's well listened to. Thousands of people are going to hear the interview. People are now like, I want to be on there. So it's not a hard sell. It was in the beginning, though. I will say that. Like, I think people were scared of me in the beginning, Mike, to be honest. They were a little scared of me.
Why is that, you think?
Just me, my language being associated with me, like politically correctness, just like this motherfucker's unhinged, they were scared of me. And I don't blame them for that. I'm not mad at them. But once they saw, I wasn't going to embarrass them. I wasn't going to make them look bad. In fact, I wanted to celebrate them. I wanted to celebrate their lives and what they achieved. So once they saw the first 2 or 3 podcasts, I'm not going to mention their name, but I got 2 or 3 buddies of mine that they would have been A-list country singers in their day, and now they're probably C-list now, 20 years later. They didn't want to come on because they didn't want to be associated with Uncut and Real Raw. I'm good with that. I had another cut and horse trainer a week ago. I texted him and said, hey, I'd love for you to come on and I want to celebrate your life and why you're successful and all that. And I said, if you don't want to be on, that's no problem. And he texted me back. And I respect him for what he just texted me. He texted me back and he said, if it's something my daughter can listen to, I'd be glad to do it. And I really respected his response. And I texted him back and I said, I'm sorry, that won't work for me. This is not a podcast for children. It's a podcast for adults. I look forward to seeing you in the future. I look forward to shaking your hand, and I look forward to seeing you down the road. And I very much meant it. I didn't take offense to it.
Right.
But I stood my ground. Like there's another woman on TikTok that I'm not going to say her name out of respect to her just yet. And I texted her, I found a number, a guy got it to me. This girl's got 3.7 million people on TikTok that follow her, okay? And I texted her and I said, hey, it's Clinton Anderson here from Down Under Horsemanship. I'd love to have you come on the podcast. She texted back and said, oh my God, I've been a fan from you since I was a little girl. I'd love to be on your podcast, blah, blah, blah. And then she called me. I said, let's have a conversation. So we talked, and she said, here's my problem. My audience is PG. A lot of kids in my audience, etc. She said, I talk worse than you. I'm a bigger sailor than you in real life. So she said, your language does not bother me at all. But my audience, I got to clean it up for my audience, okay? And she said, can we still do the podcast, but you don't swear? And I said, no, we can't. I said, I appreciate that, but I'm going to be me. It's called Uncut and Real Raw for a reason. I said, I'll tell you what the best I can do for you. I'll tone it down a smidge because this is just who I am. So I said, there's going to be a few fucks that pop out, a couple of shits, okay, and so forth. But I can't change me for you because then I'm a sellout. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? If I act differently just because you're going to come on, I'm not being me. And she said, I respect that. Awesome. Does that make sense? So yeah. I can't stop being me because then I become counterfeit. I respect the people that hate my guts because I'm still going to be me. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's why I like doing it in person. And the guy that said to me that rejected when I said to him it wouldn't work, I'm not mad at him for that. I respect his values. He said, if my daughter cannot listen to it, I do not want to be on. I didn't hate him for that. I didn't think less of him. In fact, I respected him for it. I hope he respected me for saying, I can't have you on. Because as much as he's going to stand conviction for his values in life, I'm going to stand convicted for my values in life.
Right.
Because when we all die, when we get to the pearly gates and we have to be judged by God, I promise you, he ain't going to give a fuck about my language. He's going to be judging me on a lot of other shit in life, a lot more serious than whether I say fuck or not.
Right.
That's my view. Because I know a lot of people who don't swear at all, Mike, and they are the most counterfeit, backstabbing pieces of shit in the world.
Yeah.
They will stab you in the back, slit your throat, take your woman. But in public, they are absolute moral standards.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I know when we get to the pearly gates, my language won't be what I'm judged on. My character will. My heart will. My actions will. A lot of other things I'll be judged on, but it won't be whether I cuss or not, I promise you.
Words are words.
That's exactly
What is
right.
the intent behind the words?
I judge people on their character, not on their words.
Right.
What do they do in life? What do they do for people? How do they build people up? What are they like behind scenes? And I can't tell you, and in business, I can't tell you how many people I've done business with that present this to the public, and when the door is closed, act like this.
Oh, yeah.
One good thing about people like me is you might hate me, but at least you know what I am.
Right.
There's not a different side to me when I close the door. It is what it is. And I'll trust somebody that I dislike, that I know that they're going to be the same person in front of the public as what they are behind the public.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
That's
Well, all
awesome.
I can tell people is I encourage everybody that I get into contact with to listen to your podcast. Subscribe to it, be a fan of it, because I'm a fan of your podcast,
Thanks,
to be
man.
honest. I enjoy it. I'm also a big fan of Andrea Fapani's podcast. He's got a great one. I think it's Full Contact with Chris Dawson and
Russell Dilday.
Russell Dilday. He's a buddy of mine. I feel like an arsehole. I forgot his name. Russell. There's some really good podcasts out there that I'm getting energy from. So they're not my competition. I want to build them up, not tear them down.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the more we get behind each other as an industry, in the Western industry, and understand we're not competition against each other. Yeah. Sure, when you walk in the gate, you're trying to beat your fellow horseman. But outside the gate, he's not your enemy.
Yeah.
He's somebody you want to build up, not tear down. I'm on a big crusade on the internet to build people up, not tear people down. There's so much fucking negativity on the internet of hate. Let's turn it around. Let's turn this into positive. Let the trolls troll on each other.
Yeah.
Let the winners be winners together. Let's build each other up, not tear each other down.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's not that many of us, when you really think about it, in this Western industry doing this thing. And so, yeah, the more the merrier. And,
Yes.
and I think it's more of like a kumbaya type deal than a competition.
You're damn right.
So.
You're damn right it is. You're damn right it is. Well, listen, mate. Cheers to you, brother.
Salute.
Proud of you. Thank you for being on my podcast. I hope we do it again. And if there's anything I can ever do to help promote you or help build you more successful, I'm on your team.
Likewise, my friend.
Cheers, mate.
Salute.
Today's episode was filmed and produced by Uncut Productions, marketing by Stewart & Associates, and organised and administrated by Down Under Horsemanship. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a rating. Follow us and stay up to date on social media, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. See you next time, mate. Cheers.